Check, check, check. Okay. All right. Okay. That was almost a disaster. Sorry about that. Yeah, was went with the wrong stream there. This is in fact APUSH, and so glad you're here. Hopefully that's the worst technical error that we're going to have today. Hey, welcome to the stream. We're going to go over units 1 through 5 tonight for AP U.S. history. Sorry you guys didn't get to hear that whole song. That song is a jam, man. I love it. Anyway, so here we are. Glad to have you guys here. Thanks for coming. Just so you know, a couple of things before we get started. This is going to be about 90 minutes. I'm going to review content for about 90 minutes, 1 through 5, units 1 through 5. And then after that, I will post this live until all the exams are taken, even the makeup exams, the later ones as well. So just so you know, that's what we're doing. Somebody's saying it's muted. Is it still muted? Am I lagging? All right, hold on.
You're good on my view. Really? Yeah, you're not lagging. You're good.
Okay.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, we can hear you. Good. All right, good. Y'all give some love to Matt and Aaron in my moderators over there in the other room. Give some W Matts and W Aaron, ERIN in the chat, since I made the awful blunder. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right. So yes, 90 minutes. I'm going to post this after. Just so you know, there are notes linked down below. If you want to follow along, download and print them out. They'll be going along with all the big ideas that I'm talking about. And then if you want to use, as is our custom on these streams, if you want to use the super chat function in order to shout out, teacher, whoever, whatever, you be sure to do that before 8:30 p.m. In fact, there it is. Before 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, that's when the super chats get turned off. So be happy to read them. Love to do it. Keep it clean. If there's anything that is, hard to say or whatever, spell it out phonetically for me. That would be super helpful. And I think that's about it. And the only other thing is, let me get rid of this. Get rid of this so y'all can see this beauty. Look what I got for my birthday. Yes, indeed. Y'all, I love Taylor Swift. I just need you to know that. So anyway, joke of the day. Let's start with the joke of the day. Yesterday I was washing my car with my son, and he said, "Dad, can't you just use a sponge?" Right? Right? It's a banger. That's how this is going to go tonight, y'all. Okay, let's get this party started. We got a lot to get through. I'm not going to say everything that you covered in the last 9 months. Clearly, I'm going to try to give you sort of the big ideas, and if there are certain things with multiple examples, I'll just give you one example and that sort of thing. But hopefully, it'll jog your memory and at least give you something like, yeah, I don't remember that, whatever. You go back and study, and hopefully this will help you out. So let's begin with Unit 1. Y'all ready? Thank you for all the well wishes. Thank you. Yes. All right. If some of y'all can't hear me, I would say refresh the stream. Just refresh it, see if that helps. Matt or Aaron, if you can put that into the chat, since they can't hear me, just tell them to refresh the stream, and hopefully that'll fix their problems. Okay, Unit 1, let's go. Unit 1, Period 1, 1491 to 1607. So this unit is all about the natives of America and their various societies. It's also about contact with Europeans as they started coming over, and the resulting transformations of both societies as contact happened. And that is going to lead us into our first big idea of the night, and that is Native American populations in the Americas were diverse peoples with differing ways of life shaped by the environment in which they lived. There is so much going on in that big idea, but we're going to try to keep it simple. So let's just, excuse me, let's just go through a few different regions and talk about how indigenous Americans living in those places responded to their environment, how that shaped their society. So let's start with the coastal regions, okay? So on the coastal regions, many of these people groups developed permanent settlements because they were able to, because of the abundance of fish, the abundance of small game, the diversity of plant life that was in those areas. A good example here is the Chumash people who lived in present-day California. And then we can move over to the Great Basin region. This is sort of like modern-day Colorado, sort of up all the way into Canada. These were more nomadic folks. They moved around. They were hunter-gatherers, and they required large tracts of land in order to hunt buffalo. And the reason they were like that is because that environment was very arid, very dry, very desert-like. And so they couldn't be the same. Their societies did not develop the same way as coastal societies because their environment was different. So a good example here would be the Ute people. Then we'll move into the Mississippi River Valley. These folks were largely farmers because of the rich soil wow, there's like a storm going on outside. I think it's supposed to like thunderstorm real bad here. So if this goes black, then y'all will know, at least we'll know what happened. Anyway, Mississippi River Valley, they were farmers because of the rich soil on the either side of the Mississippi River. And also as a result of that, they participated pretty robustly in trade networks up and down the Mississippi River. Probably the best example here is the Cahokia, who had arguably one of the largest civilizations in the indigenous Americas. Then we can go up into the Northeast. These were also farmers. They tended to live communally in longhouses, which were they were able to do that because there was lots of timber in the region. Those longhouses were constructed with that timber. So again, they're reacting to their environment. Best example here is the Iroquois. Now again, there's so many more examples, so much more detail that we could go into, but we're not going to because we're just running through here, and that brings us to big idea number 2. Europeans came to the Americas for various reasons. So let's talk about that. So in the 1400s, European states were changing pretty significantly. They were going through a process of political unification, and that led to stronger, more centralized states. And so the consequence of that was there was a growing upper class with a taste for luxury goods, especially from Asia. And so they wanted to procure those luxury goods. But there was a problem because the Ottoman Muslims controlled the land-based trading routes that would have got those goods into Europe. And the Ottomans charged, a fee, obviously, for that privilege of bringing those in. Europeans didn't want that. So Europeans started looking for sea-based routes to get to the Asian trade routes so they get those, nice lovelies that they wanted. Now, the first major mover on this count was Portugal. They established what was known as a trading post empire all around Africa, and eventually gained a strong foothold in the Indian Ocean network as well. Then the next major player you need to know was Spain. They sought to sail west in order to find new paths to Asian markets as well. I should say Portugal went around Africa to get to the Asian markets. Spain decided they wanted to sail west across the Atlantic in order to find a path to those Asian markets. Also, what aided Spain in this is what was known as the Reconquista of the Iberian Peninsula, which was the expulsion of Jews and Muslims from that area. And so that meant that the Spanish were real motivated to spread Christianity as well. So Ferdinand and Isabella, the Spanish monarchs, they went ahead and hired Christopher Columbus, and he decided he's going to go ahead and sail west. And so he did. He bumped into two continents that he didn't know were there, namely the Americas. And then as he returned and Europeans became interested in these what these new continents had to offer, that created a fierce competition among European states in order to explore those new lands. And so, especially England, Portugal, France, among others. And that leads us to big idea number 3. The Columbian Exchange resulted in massive changes in Europe and the Americas. Now, the definition of the Columbian Exchange, basically, it's a transfer of people, of animals, plants, diseases, all of that from the east to the west, and from the west to the east, from the old world to the new world, and the new world to the old world. Okay, there's that thunder. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. And no, I don't have any FRQ predictions. I'm sorry. I wish I did. I'm just not good at that. I don't know. Anyway, Columbian Exchange. So it's just going to be helpful to have a couple examples in your head. So as far as crops being exchanged, from the Americas to Europe, you had potatoes and maize. And then from Europe to the Americas, you had things like wheat and rice. And then in terms of animals, from the Americas into Europe, you had turkeys. And from Europe into the Americas, you had cattle and pigs and horses. Those had, some serious consequences, but it may have been the diseases, the transfer of disease, that may have been one of the biggest consequences, at least for the indigenous peoples of the Americas. So from the Americas into Europe, several diseases were transported, smallpox, measles, and these being two of the most deadly. And because the indigenous people of the Americas didn't have any immunity to these diseases, these devastated the populations of the Americas. And then there was a transfer of minerals. Okay, big one here would be gold and silver from the Americas into Europe. And this huge amount of mineral wealth that was being carted in facilitated the European shift from feudalism to capitalism. And that's going to lead us to big idea number 4. All right, big idea number 4. The arrival of the Spanish fundamentally changed the social and economic makeup of the Americas. So here we're going to focus on the Spanish. So and how they changed, like when they brought the Spanish in, when the Spanish brought themselves in to the New World. What did they do? How did they change it? Okay, sorry. Turn that down. Okay. Spanish, sorry. Okay, so change number 1 that you're going to need to know is the introduction of the encomienda system. So the Spanish used Native American forced labor to work their plantations and mine the precious metals that they wanted. But there was a problem with that. The indigenous Americans, as I mentioned in the last big idea, kept dying in massive numbers from smallpox and measles and all the rest. And so that led to the introduction of a new system, a new coerced labor system, namely African slavery. So the Spanish and other colonial powers began partnering with West Africans to bring enslaved Africans to the Americas, which ultimately replaced native labor. And that was great for the colonizers because Africans had been in contact with Europeans and Asians for a long time, for millennia at this point. And so there was already built-in immunity to these diseases in large part. So, and then the third change for that the Spanish imposed in the Americas was the caste system, or you may have heard it called the casta system. Same thing. Basically, this just categorized people in the Americas based on race and ancestry. So, at the top of the heap, it was a fundamental reordering of the society. This is not how it worked before the Europeans got there. So at the top of the heap were native-born Spaniards, and then at the bottom were Africans and Native Americans. And then throughout the middle, there was like lots of different gradations of how those different ethnicities mixed and interacted. And that leads us to big idea number 5. As a result of their interaction with each other, Europeans and Native Americans' understanding of each other changed over time. So Each of these groups had different understandings about how the world worked with respect to dang near everything, but religion, gender roles, family, land use, power. I could go on. But you're going to need to know a couple of examples. So how did they differ in terms of their ideas on land use? Europeans understood land as a commodity, and that commodity could be bought and sold. Native Americans, on the other hand, had a more, symbiotic, like almost spiritual connection to the land. It wasn't something that could be owned. It was something that everybody is connected to. They also had divergent understandings of religion. Europeans were, for the most part, Christian. Native Americans, although there's a lot of diversity in indigenous American religion, but in general, they engaged in more pantheistic religions. And these differed from region to region. And so all of this interaction with these competing worldviews led to a debate back in Europe about the proper relationship of Europeans to Native Americans. And so it'll be just helpful to know, let me mention real quick, the two sides of this debate. One is represented by Juan Guinness de Sepulveda. He said that Native Americans were less than human, and that meant they benefited from harsh labor conditions that the Spanish were imposing. But then on the other side of the debate was Bartolomé de las Casas, who argued that Native Americans, no, they deserved dignity as human beings. And ultimately, the side of Sepulveda's side in the debates won out, and this harsh labor system continued. And that's all for Unit 1. So let me go ahead and read a couple of these super chats so we can get a few of them done, because I think we're going to have a lot. Let me get these over here real quick. All right. So again, if you're just coming in, I'll be reading these super chats. Mostly, these are just for shout outs. I'm not doing content questions or anything like that. I don't have any FRQ predictions, nothing like that. But I'll read a few of them between units, and then most of them I'll read at the end. So keep an eye on, write down or whatever. Remember when you sent your super chat, because I'll be reading the times when they were submitted, so you don't have to when yours is coming, basically. All right, let's start with Blue 5 GD. This was back from this morning. Shout out to Miss Miller from Patrick Taylor. Y'all got to get a 5, like how the colonists dumped tea into Pearl Harbor. 6-7 Quang Tran Skibbity Toilet Riz. I hope the colonists dumping tea into Pearl Harbor was a joke, and if it is, it landed. Veronica Costandi, what's up, Slime? Shout out my teacher, Mrs. Marty. You met her at an AP convention, and she was so excited to see you. Anyways, shout out our Tung Simarty. Hey, Miss Marty. Good to see you. Ram Israel, shout out Miss Elmhurst, aka Little E, aka Elmkirk. Abby P, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Mr. Moses's APUSH kids on their way to get 5s. Holy Philip. Diana Plays, shout out Miss Brewer's class. We survivors for real. He hates that orange man. If you know, you know. Jake Booth, look in the camera and say, Mr. Dunham. Mr. Dunham is the GOAT. Body the Pistol for $20. Thank you. Shout out to Maurice Almacher the third, the best APUSH teacher. I love that. Thank you, Body. Appreciate that. Colby7719. Can you shout out Mr. Radke from Colby and tell him to give me a pride card? P.S. Say, you only need 3 people to make a state. All right, a couple more. Miriam Warrich. Highly grateful to have Mr. Andrew Taylor as my APUSH teacher. He supported me on every step this year. Also, thanks to Heimler for supporting outside class. You're welcome. Kahan Sun, thank you for the donation. Idiot Child, big tip for essays. Put your thesis in bold. It could save you a point where you otherwise would have missed. Also, shout out to Miss T's 9th period APUSH class. Also, wish me luck on AP Stats tomorrow. Good luck, Idiot Child. K. Jaden. All right, 2 more. Shout out Mr. Baker, the GOAT, specifically 3rd period and his final year of being the best teacher of all time. Thank you. All right, Mr. Baker, congratulations. Caleb McMillan for $20. Thank you. Shout out to Mr. Chisholm. I've been with him for AP World and APUSH and genuinely wouldn't be the same student I am now if he wasn't there. Thank you for being the best teacher I've ever had. Come on. That's so dang sweet. I love it. All right. I'll read the rest. I'll read some more after we're done with Unit 2. So I say we just go ahead and get into Unit 2, y'all. Let's do it. All right, so Unit 2, Period 2, 1607 to 1754. First big idea. The Spanish, Dutch, French, and English projects of colonization were motivated by different goals. So, well, let me back up. The big idea of this unit is trying to answer the question, how did the various European powers colonize and interact with the Americas, with a particular emphasis, as we get to the later ideas, on the British. Okay, so now let's get to big idea number 1. So the motivations for these imperial powers to come over to the Americas and get their colonization party on can mainly be summarized by gold, God, and glory. Okay. Now let's take them, but they're all somewhat a little bit different emphases. So let's take the Spanish first. Their goal was mainly the extraction of wealth. The Spanish were all about that gold, all about that silver, and eventually the cash crops as well. They also had a big stake in the spread of Christianity. And so the result, with those goals and animating their methods for colonization, the result was the subjugation of native populations and, as I mentioned before, a total reordering of their society. But then the French and the Dutch, which there's a lot of similarities with the French and the Dutch, so we'll take them together. They were more interested in establishing trade partnerships with the indigenous societies than they were in like conquest, like the Spanish were. And especially important was the fur trade. And so that meant that the French and the Dutch had very few permanent settlements compared to the Spanish. So the French, for example, had Quebec. The Dutch had New Amsterdam. And neither of them were much interested in converting Native Americans to Christianity. They were all about the trade relationship. But then we get to the British, and we'll spend a little more time with them. Now, the British were experiencing like economic inflation at this point as a result of the Columbian Exchange. Also, something called the enclosure movement was going on, and that meant that land was scarce. You also had religious issues like the Puritans and the Separatists who were experiencing religious persecution, and therefore the goals of the British colonizers varied quite a bit. There was some of them moved because they wanted social mobility, others because of economic prosperity, others because of religious freedom, or some combination of all of the above or some of the above. And that's going to lead us to big idea number 2. The British colonies in North America differed from each other in their goals, population makeup, and society. Okay, so here's where you're going to have to be able to compare how we're focused now on the British, how as the British came to colonize the North American continent, different groups with different goals came to do it, and that meant that their societies formed differently and they had different emphases. So let's start with the Chesapeake, Carolina area, and the first permanent settlement there, in fact, the first permanent settlement in all of the East Coast in the 13 colonies was called Jamestown in 1607. The goal there was to extract wealth, pretty plain and simple. So that meant the population of that colony was mainly men looking for work, and most of them were indentured servants. So later they're going to be replaced by enslaved Africans on account of something called Bacon's Rebellion, but put that in your pocket, we'll come back to it. Now, eventually, the main crop that they were able to create prosperity in this colony was the export of tobacco, and that really turned their colony around. Then if we move north and go to New England, this was settled in 1620, or beginning in 1620, by Puritan family groups, okay? So these were the separatists. And it's important that they settled in family groups. Over in Jamestown, it's mostly single men, coming over. But in New England, we've got family groups. So how is that going to change it? Well, their goal was to establish a colony shaped by their religious principles and create the occasion for economic prosperity, because they lacked that in Holland, where they had moved after they fled England. And so that meant that this was much tighter, more organized society than and focused more on religion, freedom of religion, than was the Chesapeake colony. Then if we move down to the British West Indies and the Southern Atlantic coastal colonies, things like places like St. Christopher, Barbados, Nevis, they have pretty similar climates. It's warm all year round, which meant that in those places they could grow crops all year round. And so in those places, they became the emphasis became on cash crop farming, and which means that they didn't grow crops just to survive and eat. They grew crops in order to ship them off across the sea to be sold on distant markets. And this is especially true with tobacco, and especially true in those areas with sugar. Now, a spike in demand for both of those commodities led to an increased demand for enslaved African laborers on the plantations. And that's going to have some consequences that we'll talk about in maybe the next big idea. I can't remember. It's coming up. And then finally, let's consider the middle colonies like New York, New Jersey. These colonies were on the sea. They have many rivers, and so therefore they became hubs of trade. That's how they developed. They developed export economies that were based on cereal crops and other things. And because they were, significant and diverse trade hubs, these colonies attracted a big diversity of different kinds of folks. So it was much different than, for example, in New England, where it was a lot of the same kind of people, a lot of similar morals, similar ideas, much different in the middle colonies. Now, the last thing you'll need to know on this big idea is something about how governance played out in these colonies. And let's talk about New England. So this was a largely self-governing colony, and it was unusually democratic for the time. Why is that? Well, because of the distance between the colony and Big Mama Britain over across the sea. And one great example, probably the shining example of this emphasis on self-government, was the Mayflower Compact. So, the Pilgrims drafted this document before they disembarked from their ship, and they organized their government based on the model of a self-governing church congregation. They were Congregationalists, and that's how they ran their church. But down in Virginia, it was again a different kind of colony, but same emphasis on self-governance. There you had the House of Burgesses. So in Virginia, this was a representative assembly which could levy taxes and pass laws. But the point is, because Britain was so far away, they had to figure out how to govern themselves, because it was not easy at that distance. And that leads us to big idea number 3. Let's go. All right, what kept colonization viable was the great wealth being generated by the transatlantic trade. All right, so let's talk about the development of the Atlantic economy. And I'll just give you one example here, and that's the triangle trade, or the triangular trade. Now, to be clear, this is just the triangle trade is not like all of the Atlantic trade. The Atlantic trade is much larger than this, but you probably learned about the triangular trade in your class. So let's talk about that. So this is when trade became truly global, right? There's always lots of interregional trade between the people in Afro-Eurasia, but now we're going across the Atlantic Sea. Trade has now become truly global. So the way the triangle trade worked in its most basic form is, you just start at one point in New England. New England merchants carried rum to West Africa in order to trade for enslaved people, and then they would get, and then those enslaved people would be taken to the southern colonies, the Caribbean colonies, be traded for sugar and molasses, and then that would be traded right back up to the New England colonies, where they would make rum, and et cetera, et cetera. So the important part is, with with the colonization of the Americas, we now have a real globalization of trade. And when these enslaved people from Africa were coming over across the Atlantic, they were coming across something called the Middle Passage. And it was brutal. Many of them died. Many of them were malnourished. Many of them were infected with disease as they came. And then once they arrived, it wasn't much. Their lives didn't get much better. So, but that's how it worked in the triangle trade. Now, last thing, you have to know what drove this international intra-ocean trade. In large part, what drove it is an economic system that was very prominent in Europe at the time, namely mercantilism. So mercantilism relied heavily on establishing colonies in order to provide. Tripped over that one. In order to provide, nailed it, the parent country with raw materials. Okay, so colonies are there to enrich the mother country. And so, Britain made a whole lot of efforts to weave their colonies tightly together with the mainland. And one of the ways they did that was the Navigation Acts, which required merchants to trade with English colonies in English-made ships. And, goods had to pass through English ports where they were taxed before they could be sold to the general public. And that leads us to big idea number 4. As European colonies became more established, European powers maintained differing policies in their interactions with Native American peoples, which often led to conflict. Okay, so wars with Native Americans and, alliances with some groups against others. This just became the natural fare of the day as the British were becoming more and more invasive into the North American continent. And let me give you an example. So there was Metacom's War, for example, also known as King Philip's War. Metacom was chief of the Wampanoag Indians, and he began to understand that the British encroachment on their lands was not going to stop, and therefore it was threatening their way of life and would only continue threatening. And so he allied with other American Indian groups and attacked British settlements. And so, the point is, all is not well between colonists and Native American populations, right? There's paintings that will suggest otherwise, and documents that will suggest otherwise, but the very fact of open conflict strongly suggests that all was not well between colonists and the Native American populations. Another example was the Pueblo Revolt. So this was a revolt against the Spanish over in the Southwest. So mainly it was, a resistance to the Spanish land grabs, and not to mention their Christianizing mission of the people in that area. And so the Pueblo revolted. And, initially they were successful, but eventually, after 10 years or so, the Spanish came back and crushed the rebellion and were able to consolidate their power. But after that, to be fair, the Spanish did accommodate certain American Indian aspects of their culture in the Southwest areas instead of, maintaining their policy of complete eradication. And that leads us to big idea number 5. All right, we're cooking, guys. We're cooking. Big idea number 5. All British colonies depended more or less on enslaved African laborers, but some enslaved people actively rebelled against the system. Okay, so not all colonies, it's important to know, not all colonies equally relied on enslaved laborers. I wish I had a map here, but if you picture a map, or if you watch my video on this, you'll see it. If you picture a map of the 13 colonies, basically the number of enslaved people grows. If you start from the north and go all the way to the south into the Caribbean, it grows as you go southward. Okay, not many up in the north, a little more in the middle colonies, a lot more in the southern Chesapeake colonies, and then the most in the Caribbean colonies. So basically, in order to, as enslaved African labor became the chief dominant coerced labor system in this area, the British began to feel like they needed to justify this harsh treatment of the enslaved Africans. And so one way they did that was to come up with the idea that enslaved people were chattel. Okay, that's why it's called chattel slavery, which means the word chattel just means property, which means that the enslaved people in their minds were not fully human. Okay, it's similar to the arguments that Sepulveda was making in the debate about indigenous Americans and the encomienda system, and that was a justification that helped them to continue to perpetrate the enslaved labor system. Now, you always got to talk about, if you're talking about the system of slavery, you always got to talk about how the enslaved people did not like it. I hope that's obvious, but they did resist, okay? And there were certain different flavors of resistance. Some were covert, sort of secretive, under the radar. Others were overt. And so, like with covert rebellions, they were able to like maintain their cultural customs, their belief systems that they left from their homeland. But then more overt rebellions, a good example here would be the Stono Rebellion. So this occurred in 1739 in South Carolina. And by the way, I'm telling you 1739, you don't need to know the exact date that it happened, but it is helpful to just kind of know the order in which things happened. So nobody's going to ask you what year the Stono Rebellion happened, but I'm just so you can organize it in your mind. So anyway, in this event, a small group of enslaved people burned plantations. They killed white folks. Ultimately, this rebellion was put down pretty quickly, but it is important to know that resistance did occur, okay? And that leads us to big idea number 6. Colonial society both resembled English society and developed its own character. Okay, so let's talk first of all. Okay, the idea here is that the American colonies, yes, they were something different than the culture and the society back home in England. But they weren't completely different. They were still very British. They were still very English. And so we need to understand why. So one of the reasons is because of the influence of the Enlightenment. So thanks to the transatlantic print culture, American colonists were influenced by this European intellectual movement, especially influenced by ideas like natural rights and the social contract and the weakening of religious authority, et cetera, et cetera. And so as those ideas began to take root in the Americas, they're beginning to, or I should say that they're looking more and more British because that's what's going on in Europe. Now, in the 13 colonies, there is a response to this sort of Enlightenment party. And that response was from a group of religious folks who became known as the New Light clergy. And they preached against the loss of faith that was attending the Enlightenment influence, because one of the main tenets of the Enlightenment is that there is the only authority you can trust is, what can be sensed, what can be proven with the thinky parts, and not religious authority, not revealed authority in a Bible or a religious book or something like that. So this New Light clergy came out and began to oppose this because they saw it as a loss of faith. And so the fervor of this, rejection of Enlightenment thought and an embrace of religious authority, it laid the groundwork for the First Great Awakening, which we'll talk about in a second. Well, no, let's talk about it now. So the First Great Awakening is what was a massive religious revival that swept through the colonies, and it was led by people. Many, but the ones to know would be Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield. And the reason why this is important, there's so many reasons why it's important, but the thing you probably need to remember that you're going to write about or whatever is that the First Great Awakening was the first truly national movement in the 13 colonies. And as such, it helped shape the national identity of the people who lived there. Okay? And that leads us to the final big idea of Unit 2, and that is British colonial policies led to an increasing mistrust in the American colonies. Okay, so American colonies, as I mentioned, we're becoming more Anglicanized. I can never say that word. English-like. Okay, there it is. And they're developing autonomous political communities, and like the House of Burgesses that I mentioned earlier, and those very much resemble English institutions. Even so, even though these American colonists were still very British, there's a growing frustration among them with respect to their relationship to Great Britain. We're going to talk a lot more, like that's almost exclusively what the first half of the next unit is about. So we'll talk more about that. But one illustration here, and that was the practice of impressment. This was when British naval officers would seize colonial men against their will and force them to serve in the Royal Navy. And American colonists resisted this in large part because it was the British Navy had a bad reputation for malnutrition, disease, death in the line of work, and so they resisted this impressment. But Big Mama Britain's over there going like, y'all can't say no to me. And so that resistance led to 3 days of rioting in response to the general impressment for King George's War. So the point is, the colonists are becoming increasingly aware of their natural rights, and that made them grow very tired of these kinds of violations, or what they perceived as violations. And that is going to lead us to the next unit. But first, let me read a couple of these super chats. Y'all, there's a lot of them. There's a lot. All right, how y'all doing? All right, yes, this is it. I think we will be ending right around 8:30, maybe 8:45. But I'll be reading, looks like I'll be reading these for a couple hours after that. Okay. Let me just do a few of these and we'll jump right back in. Palando 23. This is at 6:55. Shout out to the APUSH students of Rocky Point and Mr. Eichler. And a huge shout out to all my friends. I wouldn't have made it this far without you guys. 5s inbound from your pal Oliver. Well, that's lovely. Educational account. Sup Heimler, shout out to Mr. Robbins and Mr. Chatbot, MHSHS. Mia DV5UR, shout out to Mr. Clements, one of the best teachers I ever had. Learned so much from him this year. Lancers love APUSH. Ella MZ6GK, Lauren, love you boo. Heimler de goat. Dell SK4225, shout out FRQ2 on AP Bio for making sure we would not get that 5. Oh boy. That's unfortunate. There's always that one. Evesence, New York Lily, thank you for the thank you for the donation. Toasty Pickle, shout out to Mr. Boast. He's been an excellent teacher of APUSH and brings in awesome energy to the classroom. Also, Triple T, we are getting 5s Friday. I agree. Jack Herbert, shout out to Mr. Henry Blacksburg, high school best APUSH teacher ever. Also, make sure to vote Jack and Josh for National Honor Society co-secretary. All right, a few more. Dusk Anna, shout out Daddy Gleason Glizzy at Pittsford Menden High School. Tell him to give period 1 the Steve Pizza Pie Party. I love you, Heimler-san. Happy birthday. Oh, thank you. Muse, Mr. Muse, hi Heimler, can you shout out the best history teacher ever? No, best history teacher ever and best teacher ever, Mr. Darnell. And also shout out 5th period APUSH. Giant Jimbo, shout out Miss Soares from AHS for helping us with those lectures. P-Man Sam, can you shout out Mr. Volrath's first and second hour and bless us with a 5 on the exam? Yep, you're blessed. Andre Raimundo, shout out to Miss McMahon's 3rd period APUSH class. Oh my gosh, that's for $20. Thank you, Andre. That's really generous. Hope you guys do well. And then last one, and then we'll go to Unit 3. Coy Maddie, I'm reading from 7:01 p.m. Shout out Mr. Peckanick and everyone from Hamilton High School. I believe in every one of you guys. We are all passing a Milk Those Brain Cows. Indeed. All right, thank you guys. Y'all being super generous tonight. I appreciate that. But it is time. It is time to go to Unit 3. So let's go. Time period here is 1754 to 1800. Basically, the opening of the French and Indian War through the election of Thomas Jefferson. So this is a beefy one. So gird thyself. Let's invoke Taylor to help us. All right, 3-1. The French and Indian War led to increased land for the American colonies and a greater burden of taxation. So, let's just do the causes and effects of the French and Indian War. So, causes first. And by the way, the French and Indian War is part of a larger, more global war called the 7 Years' War. But as it occurred on the American continent, it's the French and Indian War. So, this is a mutual conflict between the French and the British. The British were getting nervous about French encroachment in the Ohio River Valley and vice versa. So they fight it out. Ultimately, the British win. As a result, the French are basically completely ousted from North America, and the Louisiana Territory is transferred to Spain. Eventually, it's going to come back to the United States, but for now, with Spain. Regardless, as a result of this war, the British doubled their land holdings in North America, like all the way over to the Mississippi River. Excuse me. Been having sinuses, allergies, sickness. I don't know what it is all week, but got my tea. We'll get through it. Okay, so that was a huge consequence, right? Moving on to the more pertinent consequences is that with all that extra land, American colonists begin moving west, and that increases, obviously, conflicts with the indigenous Americans who lived there. Therefore, because the British don't want to keep putting down, addressing all these conflicts, the British drew something called the Proclamation Line of 1763, which prevented colonists from migrating west like they wanted to. And so, this really frustrated the colonists because, look, they had shed their blood in this war, and they felt entitled to the spoils of this war. And so that proclamation line was a real egg in their sock, if you know what I mean. But then second, there was increased taxation. So British debt doubled and as a result of this war, and the cost of running the colonies increased fivefold as well. And so in order to pay for all that, the British levied new taxes on the colonies in order to help pay for the war. Maybe it makes sense in theory, but it's going to cause some problems, and that leads us to big idea number 2. British colonial policy, specifically taxation without colonial representation in Parliament, led to the Revolutionary War. So, why did new taxes cause so much... See what this lozenge will do. Let me get it working. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. Aw, thanks. What flavor is the tea? I don't know. It's throat coat, whatever that is. I don't know. I'm not a tea drinker, so I don't even know what this is. But I think it's helping. It's helping. Okay. Why did taxation cause so much angst in the colonies? Well, here's where I remind you about salutary neglect. So, when the colonists flouted the Navigation Acts, the Crown basically turned a blind eye, mainly because of the distance between the colonies and the mainland. But now, after the French and Indian War, Parliament began cracking down and demanding that this tax revenue be paid, and that led to a lot of beef. Now, you're going to need to know maybe a couple of these taxes and laws that caused all this trouble. So let me just give you a couple of illustrations and we'll move on. So first of all, as I mentioned, there was stricter enforcement of the Navigation Acts. There was the Quartering Act, which ruled that imperial troops would remain in the colonies to make sure that the colonies submitted to these new taxation laws and all the other laws, and that was a real problem. There was also this Stamp Act. This was a tax on all paper items. And there were others like molasses and all this sort of thing. The point is, the colonists did not like this. And their main objection, the way they articulated it, was that, Parliament is extracting taxes from us without our consent, right? We have no representation in Parliament. Now, root around in your brain folds. What did we just talk about? Where would they have gotten that idea? They got that idea from the dang Enlightenment. Okay, so we have no representation in Parliament. That's a real problem for them, for the Americans, for the American colonists. And so Britain answers and says, no, you are represented. There's virtual representation, by which they meant that Parliament represents all classes of British citizens, not all locations. This did not make sense to the colonists. And so, in response to all of this, the colonists formed the Stamp Act Congress, which was a formal petition to repeal the Stamp Act. But the British keep introducing new taxes, like the Townshend Acts. In response to that, the American colonists boycott British goods. And then finally, the tension reaches a boiling point in the Boston Massacre. Here, British imperial officers fired into a crowd, killing 11 colonists. And to the colonists who are already having all these problems and already looking with a side eye at Great Britain and their new policies, this seemed to them like a sure sign of increasing British tyranny. And so there were other acts of resistance as well, like the Boston Tea Party, where the American colonists dumped massive amounts of British tea into the Boston harbor. And so the British respond with the Coercive Acts, which is to shut down the British harbor until they paid for the lost tea. And anyway, the point is, the news of all this spreads throughout all the colonies, and that leads to a growing support for the Patriot movement. Not independence yet. At this point, everyone still wants to be a British citizen for the most part. They just want to have their full rights as British citizens. You know what I'm saying? Okay. That leads us to big idea number 3. Enlightenment ideals exhibited a major influence on the American independence movement, especially exhibited in Thomas Paine's Common Sense and the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so Enlightenment ideas, how are they exhibited in Common Sense? Well, in Common Sense, the common sense of common sense is we need to be independent from Britain. And in that book, Thomas Paine combines biblical allusions right together, knits them right together with Enlightenment thoughts. This little pamphlet was incredibly popular in the colonies, and by the spring of 1776, a majority of the colonists had been convinced that independence really was the only way forward. And then Enlightenment thought is evident in the Declaration of Independence as well. This is also deeply influenced by Enlightenment thought. You've got natural rights language in there. All men are created equal, endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. There's the social contract where it says governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Number 4. Because we got to go. Despite Britain's military and financial advantages, the American patriots won the Revolutionary War and gained independence. The Americans probably should not have won this war, the American Revolution, but they did. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself. There are 2 groups to know, the Loyalists and the Patriots. The Loyalists were the American colonists who opposed independence. They liked the relationship with Britain, mainly because of in many ways because of the financial benefits they received, and the social benefits they received. But the Loyalists opposed independence. But the Patriots were those American colonists who favored independence. Now, ultimately, the Patriot cause succeeded. And that was in no small part because of the leadership of George Washington, who was the commander of the general of the Continental Army. So, like in the beginning of the war, the Americans were kind of a hot mess. Like they had many humiliating defeats. But then there was a turning point, and that was the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. This is a battle you need to know. The victory here convinced France to ally with the Americans against the British, and that was thanks to, in large part, to Benjamin Franklin's diplomatic work in France. And long story short, the war ends at the Battle of Yorktown in 1781 with the American colonies finally independent. They are now the United States of America. Britain has lost their 13 colonies. And that's going to lead us into big idea number 5. The Articles of Confederation was the first constitution of the United States of America, and it failed largely because the federal government was too weak. So, before, during, and after the Revolution, the various states and colonies had assembled their own constitutions. I should say states, not colonies. They had assembled their own constitutions. They assembled their own governments. And in drafting the Articles of Confederation, those models were consulted and implemented and drawn on in order to create this new constitution. So the Articles was ratified in 1781, and essentially it put all federal power into one legislative body. Okay, one branch of government. There was no executive branch. There's no judicial branch. There's no provision for a national military, no power to tax the states. And that's because the framers of this document, and the architects of this new government for the United States of America, they wanted nothing at all that resembled monarchy, that resembled centralized power. And so what the Articles did really well was to decentralize power into the states and give very little power to the federal government. But that was also its main problem. Now, arguably, probably the best thing that came out of the Articles of Confederation was the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. This provided a plan for how unformed territories could apply to the Union for statehood. It also abolished slavery in those, created structures for education, that sort of thing. But most of what's going on with the Articles is relatively negative. So, like I said, there's no power for taxation, no national army, etc. But the one event that really exposed the weakness of the Articles of Confederation was Shays' Rebellion. This was a rebellion of farmers in Massachusetts, and it kind of sprang up quickly, and then it was squashed relatively quickly by the local Massachusetts militia. So what's the problem? Well, it alarmed other leaders in other colonies because, what if other rebellions happened and, there was no national military to call on? What if these rebellions grew? The federal government isn't going to come to our rescue. And so that will lead us into big idea number 6, which is the Constitutional Convention was called to draft a new constitution to rectify the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. So the purpose of the Constitutional Convention was to revise the Articles of Confederation. But through all sorts of machinations, it quickly turned into drafting a new constitution. Now, very quickly, two factions formed. You had the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists favored stronger central government. The Anti-Federalists favored more state power. Okay. Now, one of the big debates that occurred during this convention was, as they're drafting a new constitution, how would representation work in the new government? Right? If the power to govern is in the hands of the people, as the Enlightenment idea of popular sovereignty says, then how would the people's voice be represented? Well, two big proposals came out of this. Number one, the Virginia Plan, which said that there would be representation by population. The second was the New Jersey Plan, which laid out one vote per state. Now, the reason the Virginia Plan was proposed by Virginia is representation by population meant that that would be really good for large states because they would get more representation. But New Jersey was a relatively small state, and the reason they said one vote per state is because that meant that smaller states had more power than the larger states. And so ultimately they ended up compromising on this. It was known as the Great Compromise, and basically the substance of it was that the new government would have a bicameral legislature, two houses. You had the House of Representatives, in which representation would be reckoned by population, and you had the Senate, in which representation would be equal, 2 senators per state. There was also pretty heated debate over slavery, and what came out of it was the 3/5 Compromise, which agreed that 3/5 of the enslaved population would count towards representation, which gave the southern states a lot more political power than they would have otherwise had, and that continued for quite some time until the abolishment of slavery. There was also the prohibition of the international slave trade after 1808. So they get all these compromises hashed out. Then the ratification debate begins. The Federalists and the Anti-Federalists fight it out. Federalists write the Federalist Papers to try to persuade the New York public who read them. Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, John Jay. Ultimately, these are the guys who won the debate, but only by agreeing to the Anti-Federalist demand for a Bill of Rights to be added to the Constitution. That leads us to big idea number 7. Y'all still with me? Y'all still with me? Let's go. All right. The Constitution of the United States created a new central government defined by federalism and the separation of powers. Okay, federalism, point your ear holes this way because this is one of those confusing ones that students often get all wonky about. Federalism, that's the way our system of government works in the United States. It is a sharing of power between the federal government and state governments. It has nothing to do Federalism has nothing to do with the federal government, the central government over in Washington, D.C. That's not what it is. No, federalism is just about the sharing of power. The central government doesn't have all the power. The state governments don't have all the power. They share the power. Okay, that's federalism. Okay, so there's that's one building block of our Constitution. Then there's the separation of powers, also another Enlightenment idea. The way the Constitution does it is to separate the federal government into 3 branches. There is the legislative branch, Congress, that's the lawmaking branch. There's the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court and all the other federal courts underneath it that interpret the law. And then there's the executive branch, which is represented by the president, and that's the branch responsible for executing the law. And that leads us to big idea number 8. The ideals of the American Revolution affected society in America in terms of gender roles and debates about slavery, while they also inspired revolutions in France and Haiti. Okay. So, T. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So let's start with slavery. The debate about slavery. So clearly the ideals of freedom and democracy that were being, that were pouring forth from people's mouth holes all over the colonies of the new states, that led to a renewed debate about the morality of slavery, obviously. So as a result, northern states began the process of emancipation, but not in the South. In the South, slavery was far too entrenched and far too deeply intertwined with their economic well-being. And so it becomes even more entrenched to the South, even as emancipation is going on in the North. And then there were debates about women. So women at this point in history were not socially equal to men. But there was the development of something called the Republican motherhood, which purportedly assigned women a new purpose. So what the Republican motherhood said is the best way women could influence political realities was not by voting or, running for office or anything like that. What women could do is to raise virtuous sons, instructed in the principles of liberty. So big emphasis on education. And some women embraced this. But then also the American Revolution and the ideals that underpinned it also sparked other revolutions like the French Revolution and the Haitian Revolution after it, all based they were not. There's a lot of differences in those, but they're all similar in the sense that they were based on a deep embrace of Enlightenment ideals. And that leads us to big idea number 9. The presidencies of George Washington and John Adams set precedents for the way America would behave regarding the relationship between the federal government and state governments, economic policy, and foreign policy. That one is a long one. So, George Washington, first president, and in the process of electing the first president, there quickly emerges 2 rival political parties. There's the Federalists and there's the Democratic Republicans. And needless to say, they disagreed on dang near everything. Let me just give you a quick sample of some of those disagreements. Number one, they disagreed on the relationship or the proper relationship between the federal and state governments. For example, the Whiskey Rebellion occurred in 1794. Remember, Shays' Rebellion occurred a few years earlier, and in that case, there was there was no federal army to help quell that rebellion. But in the Whiskey Rebellion, now we've got the Constitution. Now we've got a much stronger federal government. So in the Whiskey Rebellion, farmers attack federal tax collectors, and this time George Washington assembles federal troops to come in and squash the rebellion. So that leads to a big disagreement between the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans on how the federal government ought to relate to state governments. They also disagreed on economic policy. Probably the biggest example here is Hamilton's National Bank. So he made use of the elastic clause in the Constitution, otherwise known as the Necessary and Proper Clause, to consolidate the Revolutionary War debts from the states into a national debt, which had the effect of binding the states together and increasing the credit of the U.S. throughout the world. But again, Hamilton was a Federalist. The Democratic Republicans hated it because it increased the power of the federal government and made states more dependent and reliant on the federal government. And then they also disagreed on foreign policy. And for this, let's go forward. We got George Washington. Now let's go to John Adams. Under his administration, something called the XYZ affair occurred. So long story short, the French were seizing American trade ships, and so Adams sent out a delegation just to figure things out, what was going on. But those folks demanded a bribe before they would even talk to the diplomats, and so that led to a general outrage and at the insult of our national honor. And so in this case, there was actually large scale agreement between the rival parties. Very rare occurrence, but it did. But that didn't last long, because then we got the Alien and Sedition Acts. That made it legal. That these were passed under John Adams again. These laws made it legal to deport, legal and easy to deport any non-citizen of the U.S. And it also made it illegal to criticize the federal government publicly. And so there was a massive opposition to this from the Democratic Republicans, which was codified in the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. And basically what they said was, if the federal government passes a law that is clearly unconstitutional, which they believed that these Alien and Sedition Acts were, then the states have the right to nullify them. Okay? That's going to come back too. So, but put that one in your pocket too. But for now, let's go to the last big idea of Unit 3. Ideas about American national identity were found expression in art, literature, and architecture. And while there were national expressions of American identity, there were also strong regional representations as well. Okay, real quick, this one's fast. There were artists who were devoted to historical themes, trying to forge an American identity. People like Charles Wilson Peale, John Trumbull. There was also an American identity being forged through literature, like Benjamin Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac. And then there was a very distinct American form of architecture, which was the classical revival style. And you see that in Thomas Jefferson's home Monticello with the columns and the dome. And that is all we're going to do. All right. I say, instead of reading some super chats now, let's go ahead and, since we're at 8:09, let's go ahead and get into Unit 4. Unit 4. All right, yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to finish by 8:30. It may be 8:45, but we'll see. Okay, so Unit 4. This one's got 9 big ideas. Let's start. Big idea number 1, the era of Jefferson. Political parties continue to argue about policy. The Supreme Court established its role in the American government, and the U.S. greatly expanded its territorial holdings. Okay, so there were party debates, as you would expect, and here's one example, again, on the powers of the federal government. The Democratic Republicans were what are known as strict constructionists. The Federalists were what are known as loose constructionists, which means, how literally do you take the Constitution? Democratic Republicans, strict constructionists, said, no, the federal government can only do what is explicitly written in the Constitution. Federalists were like, yeah, they didn't disrespect the Constitution, but it's like, the framers of the Constitution couldn't have known everything that was going to happen. So that's why there are things like the necessary and proper clause. There are developments that are going to occur that need to have some flexibility, and so that's how they interpreted it. Also, there was the expansion of U.S. territorial holdings. Big one here is the Louisiana Purchase, and Thomas Jefferson, again, he's a Democratic Republican. As a strict constructionist, this sort of violated his principles as a strict constructionist, because nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the president is allowed to, buy a bunch of land. But he went ahead and proved it anyway, and then sent out Lewis and Clark and Zebulon Pike to chart it. And so that was fun. Also, during this period, the Supreme Court establishes its place in the American government. So if you've read the Constitution, it doesn't give much love to the Supreme Court, to the judicial branch. But the court itself grew in power under the influence of Chief Justice John Marshall. And so a key inflection point for the role of the Supreme Court in our government was in the case Marbury v. Madison in 1803. All you need to remember, or at least all I'm going to say about it at this point, is that basically this established that the Supreme Court has the constitutional prerogative of judicial review, which means the court is the final interpreter of the law and the final interpreter of the Constitution. And that leads us to big idea number 2. As federal power grew during this period, regional interest often conflicted with and opposed it. Okay, so good example here is the War of 1812. So in many ways, this war was fought because Britain insulted our national honor with the practice of impressment again, right? But this is after the Revolution. This is after the United States had become independent. The British were still impressing American citizens to go fight for the British Royal Navy. And so we get the War of 1812. Now, this war was significantly opposed by the New England Federalists. They gathered at the Hartford Convention in 1814 in order to properly express that opposition. And they even went so far as to suggest that New England states secede from the Union in protest of this war. But as it turns out, this was a very popular war among Americans, and it just proved to a lot of people that the Federalists were out of touch with the general American sentiment, and ultimately that led to the demise of the party. Okay, also federal power versus regional interest. We have Henry Clay's American System. The aim of this was to unify the American economy. How were they going to do this? Well, federally funded internal improvements, like roads, bridges, that sort of thing, protective tariffs, an establishment of the second bank of the United States. And this would have benefited the entire nation. But there was regional opposition from the South. So James Madison was a Virginian who was president at that point. He vetoed some of the provisions of the American system because, while it would benefit the nation, it would in some ways disadvantage the South. And so here you see regional opposition to national policies. And then there was federal power versus regional interest. Yeah. So another example is westward expansion. So in this period, Missouri applies to become a state. When that occurs, and the discussions about that are happening in Congress, something called the Talmadge Amendment is added to the bill, the resolution. And what the Talmadge Amendment said is that Missouri would enter as a free state. Now, again, it would be good for the whole nation to get another state. But then regional tensions flared up. For example, the South, again, opposed this because it was very important to them to keep the balance of free versus slave states in the Senate right in line, okay? The North wanted Missouri to be free. Missouri would be an odd-numbered state. The North wanted Missouri to be free. The South wanted Missouri to be a slave state. So that was a real problem. But Henry Clay came to the rescue and proposed the Missouri Compromise, also known as the Compromise of 1820. Same thing, don't get confused. Basically what it said is that Missouri would come in as a slave state, and then the southern border of Missouri, which is the 3630 line, draw it all the way out through the Louisiana Territory, and forevermore hereafter, every new state below could come in as a slave state. Every state above would be a free state. That's great. I hope it worked. So during this period, big idea number 3, but during this period, the United States sought to establish its place as an independent nation on the world stage by claiming territory and consolidating control over the Western Hemisphere. Okay, claiming new territory. We established the U.S.-Canadian border at the 49th parallel. There was also the joint U.S. and British occupation of the Oregon Territory. Additionally, the Adams-Onis Treaty resulted in Spain ceding Florida to the United States. So from 1800 to 1848, there was significant territorial expansion. And then, what about establishing authority in the Western Hemisphere? That was all about the Monroe Doctrine. So this established that the Western Hemisphere, what the Monroe Doctrine said is that the Western Hemisphere is a sphere of influence for the United States. And basically, Europeans need to get out. Don't meddle in our backyard. We're not going to do anything over there either, but this is our space, okay? That was the Monroe Doctrine. This is one way in this period where America tried to assert its dominance in the Western Hemisphere. That leads us to big idea number 4. The market revolution was the linking of northern industry with the western and southern farms, which was created by advances in technology and had significant effects on the society and culture of the United States. All right, so let's talk about the technology that made the market revolution possible. I define basically the big idea is the definition of the market revolution. So what technology made the market revolution possible? There's a lot of them. There was the cotton gin, there was the spinning jenny, etc. There's also interchangeable parts, which became the basis for the American system of manufacturing, which meant that manufacturing goods was now broken into repeatable tasks performed by unskilled laborers, which meant that mass production could occur, and but that wouldn't be any good unless there was some way to transport them. Well, there was also the steam engine. So now, boats could transport goods upstream and downstream instead of just downstream. And then eventually we're going to get the multiplication of railroads and steam locomotives as well. And so this is going to link the economy and of the various regions and create economic flourishing and interconnectedness across the nation. But the government also helped this market revolution as well. So, they passed legislation that aided the development of, quicker and more convenient paths of transportation. For example, the Erie Canal, which was dug across New York State. And the effect of it being that it fostered regional interdependence for trade. And again, it's just another example of the nation being knit together economically. Now, also, another very significant development during this period is a massive wave of immigration. Let me get some water. All right, massive wave of immigration. So from 1820 to 1840, there's basically roughly 2 million immigrants that arrived on the American shores. And many of them settled on the eastern seaboard in urban manufacturing areas, although, some did move west to establish homesteads on the frontier. But the urban immigrants changed the structure of those cities. Like they crowded into these living quarters called tenements. They brought with them and maintained their cultural traditions. And as they lived together and upheld those things, they created what are known as ethnic enclaves. So yes, they came looking for work. They found it, and there was, we'll talk about it in a second, there was resistance, but they also affected U.S. culture as well. Another result of the market revolution was the rise of the middle class. Because of the growing prosperity that all this economic interconnectedness created. And then women are affected by this as well. Remember, we had the Women still not socially equal or politically equal to men at this point. Before we had the Republican motherhood, now we get the cult of domesticity. Basically, the idea here was that men and women had separate spheres of existence. And for a woman's part, her identity was bound up in childbearing and providing, a home as a haven of rest for her husband and her children. And that was the role that women, especially middle-class women and upper-class women, should take. And that leads us to big idea number 5. All right, big idea number 5. During this period, the demand for expanding democracy manifested itself in universal white male suffrage and the growing influence of political parties. Okay. All right, it's 8:20. Whew, we got to go. So let's start with the Panic of 1819. This resulted from irresponsible banking practices, and laboring men were hit the hardest. But the problem is they could not vote to hold their politicians responsible. Now, frontier states, they already had established universal white male suffrage, and by 1825, most eastern states eventually followed suit. But then, as a result, there's of this and some other factors as well, there was the growth and realignment of political parties. So in the election of 1824, there was a split in the Democratic-Republican Party, and that would later lead to new political parties that we'll get to here in just a moment. That leads us to big idea number 6. President Andrew Jackson. Oh, it's time for Andrew Jackson. He made a profound use of federal power on issues like the national bank, tariffs, federally funded internal improvements, and the forcible removal of American Indians from their lands. Okay, so as I mentioned, new parties form. We've got the Whigs, led by Henry Clay, and then we've got the Democrats, led by Andrew Jackson. And just like the political parties before them, they're going to disagree on a bunch of stuff. Good example here is the Tariff of Abominations. This raised tariffs by 50%. Now, Northerners loved it because it was a protective tariff, and they were the manufacturing region of the country at that point. But Southerners absolutely hated it because they were farmers for the most part. They relied on imported goods for what they needed. So it hurt the farmers, really benefited the manufacturers. So Andrew Jackson's Vice President John C. Calhoun, who was from South Carolina, went ahead and encouraged South Carolina to nullify the law. Do you remember? Take it back out of your pocket? The Virginia and Kentucky Resolution? That's where that ideology comes from. Now, Jackson, in response, persuades Congress to pass the Force Bill, which gave federal authority to send U.S. troops to South Carolina to enforce federal law. It ultimately ended without conflict, but that was one of the conflicts that the two parties had. And that leads us to big idea number 7. Americans labored during this period to define a distinct American identity through language, philosophy, art, and religion. In terms of philosophy, uniquely American philosophy was transcendentalism, this was influenced by European Romanticism and the belief in human perfectibility. It's rooted in the transcendent power of nature, the beauty of nature. It emphasizes mystery, human passion, and the names to associate with this would be Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. And then in terms of forging an identity through art, we had the Hudson River School. These folks, this is in New York, these folks painted romanticized landscapes in New York and the Western Territories, and really gave voice to the American obsession with its land and its frontier. And then in terms of religion, forging an identity through religion, you got the Second Great Awakening. This Great Awakening emphasized the moral reformation of society. And that's important because the First Great Awakening really was more about personal reformation. Second Great Awakening was about the moral reformation of society. Name to associate with this one is Charles Finney, who was, this magnificent preacher who's, spread the revival in urban areas like his counterparts did in the First Great Awakening. And that leads us to big idea number 8. The rise of democratic and individualistic beliefs and social changes brought on by the market revolution led to a significant effort to reform American society. So let's talk about some of these reforms. And by the way, it's 8:25. Clearly, we're going to probably go till 8:45 or 9, but the super chats do turn off at 8:30. So FYI, if you're still wanting to do that, super chats turn off at 8:30. All right. Reform movements. So let's start with temperance. So you had the American Temperance Society, which worked for the complete abstinence from alcohol, because by their reckoning, alcohol was the root of all of society's ills. Another reform movement going on during this period was abolitionism. So in this period, abolitionism begins to spread very rapidly, and that's thanks to folks like William Lloyd Garrison, who published a newspaper called The Liberator. There's also the American Anti-Slavery Society, and these ideas mainly took root across the North, and but not all people in the North, right? This is not. It's not the North was all abolitionists and the South was all for slavery. That's not how it was. It's complicated. Now, ultimately, emancipation from slavery was achieved in the North, but some states still restricted the rights of African Americans even so. But in the South, the cause of abolition was mainly taken up by black Southerners themselves. So you had Nat Turner's Rebellion, for example. This was a slave revolt that killed like 50 white people, and ultimately it was unsuccessful. But it did create the occasion for the white elite in the South to enact stricter and harsher codes to keep their enslaved people in line. And then finally, the last reform movement of this big idea is the women's movement. This is for this, let's go to the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848. So here they drafted the Declaration of Sentiments, and this emphasized their desire to fight for women's equality in education and legal rights, and most notably in voting. Now, a lot of these movements wouldn't bear fruit in this period, but they will in future periods. And that leads us to big idea number 9. Though the majority of Southern white people did not own enslaved people, Southern culture ensured that the institution of slavery was part of the South's way of life, and thus it was to be protected. Okay, so most farmers in the South were yeoman farmers, which meant they were independent landowners. So like they were not wealthy enough to own enslaved laborers, but they still believed in the institution of slavery and the racial codes that established Southern hierarchy. And partly because Southern economics and culture was strictly defined by agriculture, specifically cotton, and enslaved labor was entirely necessary for that flourishing. So, but there was also a downside of that, which is by planting so much cotton, there was they experienced a significant depletion of soil, of the nutrients of the soil, and right at the same time there's a really high demand for cotton exports, and therefore these Southern planter elites began moving west to search for more arable land, and that's going to have consequences in the next unit, and that is Unit 4. Oh my gosh, okay. I think we just keep cooking. I just think we could keep cooking. Let's just go through. Yes, this is Antebellum South. Let's go through Unit 5. Let me get some tea, and we'll do it. All right. Let's go. If y'all aren't resting, I'm not resting. All right. Unit 5. The period is 1844 to 1877. Okay, big idea number 1. Many Americans believed it was their manifest destiny to expand their nation throughout the whole North American continent. So manifest destiny, by definition, basically is that people believed it was their God-given right to possess all the land that stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific Oceans. Why? Well, for further access to natural and mineral resources. It also afforded a lot of... There's the tea. There we go. Okay. Manifest destiny. It also afforded a lot of opportunities for settlers. Also, there was a sense sort of all throughout Manifest Destiny that people were convinced of the superiority of American institutions like representative government, and so it was therefore sort of our duty to spread that throughout the West. Now, westward expansion did occur. So what facilitated westward expansion? Well, a few things. One, legislation. For example, the Preemption Acts. This made vast tracts of land available to anybody for cheap, who, as long as they agreed to move there and establish a homestead and essentially settle the West. Also, what facilitated it was the discovery of gold. The California gold rush in 1848 led to huge migrations westward. And then, as I mentioned before, Southerners needed more arable land for agriculture, and that caused them to move west. And that leads us to big idea number 2. The Mexican-American War was caused by the annexation of Texas and resulted in large territorial gains for the United States. All right, Mexican-American War. So Texas, at this point, belongs to Mexico. American settlers have been settling there for a while, which is fine with the Mexican government. In fact, they were encouraged to do so by the Mexican government. But by Mexican law, slavery was illegal. And anybody who settled there was required to convert to Catholicism. 2 things that were odious to the Southern settlers, American settlers who were going there. So, you know, the Americans who were settling in Texas sort of flouted these laws. Mexican government begins clamping down and enforcing them. And so these Americans living in Texas rebel. And long story short, Texas becomes an independent nation. But it wants to be a U.S. state. But Mexico warns the United States, now, don't annex Texas, because if you do, that's going to lead to a war. We go into war. Anyway, fast forward, Texas is annexed during John Tyler's presidency, and there was a disagreement over the southern border, and as it turns out, war did break out. We get the Mexican-American War. Fast forward all the way to the end. It ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, and the biggest consequence of that was the Mexican Cession, which afforded the United States huge territorial gains, like in New Mexico and California, all the southwest states and the western states. Now, during this war, in this treaty, something called the Wilmot Proviso was attached to an appropriations bill. And this has caused an awful lot of problems. The Wilmot Proviso stated that any territory gained by the Mexican-American War slavery would be banned in those territories. This created a firestorm in Congress, as you might expect, and so the proviso was struck down. But it was symbolic of the growing tension that was being created by westward expansion and the question of slavery, and that's just going to keep on going. Big idea number 3, further acquisition of land led to an increasingly bitter debate over the future of slavery in America, which was temporarily resolved in the Compromise of 1850. So, Mexican Cession, once all that new land is under the power and ownership of the United States, now the question becomes, what do we do about slavery in those territories? And there were 3 positions to that debate. There was the Southern position, which is, hey, slavery is a constitutional right. So, we already have the Missouri Compromise. That line should just extend right on through to the Pacific Ocean. Then there was the free soil position, which was favored by Northern Democrats and Whigs, and they wanted all the territory to be free. And then there was the popular sovereignty position, which said, basically, why don't we just let the territorial populations themselves decide whether to allow slavery? That sounds real democratic and all, Well, that debate was very bitter. The solution came with Henry Clay's Compromise of 1850. Here's how it went down. It said that the Mexican Cession would be divided into territories who would then decide the slavery question by means of popular sovereignty. Additionally, California would be admitted as a free state. Additionally, the slave trade would be outlawed in Washington, D.C. Additionally, and most notoriously, was the passage of a stricter fugitive slave law, which is going to have consequences here in the next big idea. or in the one after this. So as more immigrants, big idea number 4, as more immigrants arrived in America, they created ethnic enclaves where they preserved their culture and faced opposition from nativists. So during this period, it was mostly Irish and German, not exclusively, but majority Irish and German immigrants. They were able to, even though more Germans moved west in order to establish farmsteads, and Irish mainly stayed in the urban centers. In both cases, they were able to keep alive their cultural customs and keep alive their language. They were able to find each other and uphold keep sacred what was sacred to them. But that didn't mean there wasn't any opposition. They had to do that in the face of great opposition. So first of all, there was the anti-Catholic nativist movement, and nativism is just the policy of preferring and protecting the interests of native-born people over against the interests of immigrants. So eventually, nativists organized a political party that centered on anti-immigrant fervor, and that was the Know Nothing Party. And they wanted to limit immigrant cultural influence, and they worked pretty hard toward that end. And that leads us to big idea number 5. Tension over slavery increased because of conflicting regional labor ideologies, a fervent abolitionist movement in the North, and the arguments of Southerners regarding the constitutionality of slavery. All right, so differences. First of all, let's talk about differences in labor ideologies. In the North, they were about free labor, not like free as in you don't have to pay anything for it, but wage labor, like non-slave labor, because they were the manufacturing sector of the nation. In the South, they were agricultural. So while the North relied on paid labor, the South relied on unpaid, coerced labor, namely enslaved people. And so, it's important to remember at this point that many Northerners didn't object to slavery as immoral. Instead, they argued that if the system of free labor expanded, then it would undermine their ability to work. What did I say? Free labor. If the system of enslaved labor expanded, then it would undermine their ability to work for wages. Okay, so out of that comes the free soil movement, and basically what that said was that the expansion of slavery was incompatible with the paid labor of free workers, and so the free soil movement is like, hey, let's just keep slavery where it is. It can't expand. We're not going to try to do away with it, but it can't expand, and that's going to cause some problems for Southerners. Another something causing tension was the growing movement of abolitionism. For example, the Underground Railroad. This was a series of trails and safe houses designed to help enslaved Southerners escape to the North. There's also the publication of Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is a best-selling novel, and it made slavery appear brutal and immoral, and Southerners did not like that depiction. And then there was the debate over the constitutionality of slavery. So Southerners argued that the Constitution protected slavery. And, if you read it, they were not wrong. Additionally, they had the 10th Amendment on their side. Like any power not explicitly enumerated for the federal government belonged to the states. So the federal government didn't have any power to abolish slavery, so that belonged to the states. That was their constitutional argument. And that leads us to big idea number 6. All attempts to compromise over slavery ultimately failed, which led to the rise of sectional political parties. All right. So further attempts to compromise on slavery, there was the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. The Nebraska Territory was divided into 2 territories, and they would decide the slavery question by popular sovereignty. But I know you're not looking at a map, so maybe it doesn't make sense, but that was north of the 3630 line, which ultimately, by passing the Kansas-Nebraska Act, it invalidated and overturned the Missouri Compromise, which was nigh unto scriptural for the opponents of this slavery debate. And so, as a result, fighting breaks out in Kansas and Nebraska between the pro-slavery and the anti-slavery factions in the territory. It leads to lots of death and bloodshed and something called Bleeding Kansas, which just further fuels division over the slavery question. And then this isn't even a debate. This just made things much, much worse, made the tension far greater. That was the Dred Scott decision, which effectively made slavery legal in every state of the Union. All of this blew up with John Brown's raid of the arsenal in Harper's Ferry. His goal was to incite a slave rebellion. Ultimately, it didn't work. But the point is that fueled further division and intensified the sectional divisions with respect to political parties. And so that's going to lead us to big idea number 7. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 without a single electoral vote from the South led to the secession of the Southern states. Now, Lincoln was a free soiler. Like, he was explicit in his campaign. If he won, he would not seek to abolish slavery where it existed. But the South heard that, and they could see the writing on the wall. If slavery cannot expand, then it's going to die, because there will be so many more free states than slave states, and they won't have any political power anymore. And so they go ahead, a coalition of Southern states go ahead and secede. First of all, South Carolina, and then 10 other Southern states joined them, and they formed the Confederate States of America. Now, what were their reasons for secession? Well, number 1, to preserve the institution of slavery, which was bound up in the Southern way of life. And the Vice President, Alexander Stephens, said this much, said that plainly in his cornerstone speech. But also, there was the protection of states' rights against unconstitutional federal overreach. This was equally important to them in their own minds. And so they secede, and that leads to the Civil War, and that leads us to big idea number 8. And we're getting through these. We're doing it. So even though the North and the South mobilized their entire economies and societies to fight the Civil War, the North ultimately won because of several strategic advantages. Now, we'll go through this quickly. I'm going to say precious little about the Civil War, except why the Union won. Because in the beginning, it didn't seem like they would, right? The South began a whole lot stronger than the North, and that was primarily due to their superior generals, as well as the advantage of fighting a defensive war on home territory. But the North ultimately prevailed, and here's why. A couple of reasons. Number 1, they had a much bigger population. They also had possession of much of the nation's industry, many of the nation's banks, 70% of the nation's railroads. That was all a very big deal. So the North had much more infrastructure and the potential to generate wealth in order to fight the war than the South did. And then there was the leadership of Abraham Lincoln. So the Civil War, as he defined it, started as a war to preserve the Union. But over time, he shifted the scope and the meaning of the war with a couple of documents. First was the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all of the enslaved people in the Confederate States, not in the border states, but in the Confederate States. And ultimately, what this did was prevented the South from getting from allying with Great Britain, because Great Britain had just abolished slavery, and it wouldn't be a good look for them to help fight a war to preserve slavery. He also reframed the war in the Gettysburg Address, through which he tried to unify the country by portraying the war against slavery as the fulfillment of America's founding democratic ideals. And that's going to lead us to big idea number 9. So after the Civil War, America entered a period of Reconstruction which abolished slavery, amended the Constitution significantly, and sought to reunify the North and South. Okay. A big deal during Reconstruction. Let's start with constitutional amendments that were added. There was the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 13th abolished slavery. The 14th applied the Bill of Rights to state governments. And then the 15th Amendment granted voting rights to formerly enslaved black men. Also in the 14th Amendment, I forgot to mention, there's birthright citizenship, which meant that all the enslaved in America were now citizens. But those 3 constitutional amendments were passed. Now, in order to make sure that those and other Reconstruction laws were kept, the South remained under occupation by federal soldiers. And to put it mildly, they were not happy about it. And so there was a big debate among Republicans, like, how should the returning Southern states be treated? Should they be treated as conquered foes, or should they be treated as long-lost family members? Now, Lincoln, he wanted to treat the returning Southerners kindly. So that meant he had minimum requirements for them rejoining the Union, but he got assassinated. And so his vice president, Andrew Johnson, the turd, he fought, he took Lincoln's place and had none of the subtlety, none of the wisdom that his predecessor had. And so he fought real hard with the radical Republicans who controlled Congress, and who wanted to punish the South for the war. Regardless, this whole thing led to further tension between the defeated South and those in the halls of power, and Reconstruction was off to a rough start. But then here's the final idea of the night. Reconstruction ultimately failed because Northern weariness of forcing Southerners into submission and Southern insistence on maintaining their pre-Civil War society. So Southerners did all that they could to maintain their society as it was before the war, in the antebellum years. So, for example, they established a system called sharecropping. So, even after the war, the South is still mainly agricultural, and they needed laborers to work the fields. And so, so many of these white planters hired former enslaved people to work the land, and they offered them contracts that bound them to the plantation and made, provisions for unlimited amounts of work, which, sounds a lot like slavery to me. They also they worked to maintain the system of slavery just under a different name. They also worked to maintain the system or the ideals of white supremacy. So they organized societies like the Ku Klux Klan in order to terrorize black Southerners into submission by enacting violence and lynching upon them. And then Southern legislatures also enacted black codes. These are laws that prevented Southern black people from owning land and borrowing money, which kept them from bettering themselves economically, which would ultimately lead to generational poverty in the South. And this is just in many ways, exactly the way it was before the war. And then there was Plessy v. Ferguson, the Supreme Court decision. This ultimately said that the segregation of society along racial lines was constitutional. And so, public facilities can be separate, but they must be equal. Like that was, and what Southerners took that and just went ahead and divided all of society, all facilities into white and black. And, these facilities were definitely separate, but they were in no way equal. So with all of this insistence of the Southerners to continue and maintain what they had before the war, the Northern population, the Union, or the Republicans and just the general population just got entirely weary of dragging the Southerners, to where they wanted them to be. And so Reconstruction ultimately ended in the contested presidential election of 1876. And it ended with the Compromise of 1877. Basically, Democrats agreed to let the Republican Rutherford B. Hayes have the presidency in exchange for removing the federal occupying troops from the South. And, once they were gone, there was no one to enforce the federal anti-discrimination laws, and Reconstruction was officially over. And so is the content review. Woo! Goodness gracious. ABC. What is this? All right. Looks like we've got a lot of super chats, so I'm going to be here for a while. But if you're going to go ahead and leave, I just want to let you know we are doing the same thing tomorrow night for units 6 through 9, which I think we'll be able to get through 90 minutes. We'll see. So if you want to review that, please come, and I'd love to have you here. So anyway, thanks for coming. Appreciate you. And if you want to hang out and hear your shout out read, here is where I do that. And tell you what, I'm going to take a quick break, get some more water, and then we'll get to it. So hang out for a sec. I'll be right back. Nope, that's not it. There it is. I'm feeling chill now. I'm feeling chill. Let's do this. All right. All right, now I'm going to be reading from 7:02 p.m. So if you know when you submitted, then you'll know where I'm reading. Shout out from, thought I saw Shaq. That would be nice. I'm actually sitting in a Shaq chair. Go to get a new chair the other day and sit in this one. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so comfortable. And then I saw a Shaquille O'Neal chair, and I'm like, I can't get a Shaquille O'Neal chair. But I did. It's very comfortable. Anyway, all right, we're going to start with Karen Meinhardt, 1690. Shout out Shuck Daddy's classes in Hamilton, Ohio. Lucas, GY5MD. Shout out Miss Nagel. She is the best. Period 2 loves you, and we are all 7-6 ready for our exam. Heimler, you are so tongue 7-6 Ohio sus. We love you. Ooh woo oh whoa for $10. Thank you. Visual Drixty. Thank you. Royal Brick. Thank you. Elif USA. Thank you. Rec Law RL. Shout out to Mr. Wallace at Wando High School. Wando High School. C. Bells. He shout out my boy Papa Dean Sprang, legendary APUSH teacher. The Bird Guy 42. Shout out to the GOAT APUSH teachers Dr. Davis from Bronx Science and Thornhill from QHSS. From Avery Gluck, Brian Chen, and Ensign Chu. I'm reading from 7:02. P-Man Sam. Can you shout out my friend Parker, who loves taking notes with his Japanese pen in his massage chair? Sure. Sounds nice. Shay Tuckman. Shout out to Mr. Shark, since he's the GOAT. Rough 6796. Shout out to Eric Charney. Goat. The Noah Bot. Shout out to Mr. Reichard. We are Reichard's geniuses. Sebastian. Hey, Heimler, can you please shout out Charlie and our 4B class from Mexico? Nice. You helped us so much this whole year. Our brain cows were milked. That's fantastic. I love y'all from Mexico. Gosh, that's amazing. That is amazing. Glad y'all are here. Pharyngeal Media. Shout out to Coach Kites, second period from YHS. Mario Brew. Shout out Bro Batch. Cool Alert. Shout out to my fellow Dorian historians. We are getting 5s. I believe in us, guys. We got this. Thank you, Heimler. You the GOAT. Well, thank you. Hannah. That's Hannah. Loco, 9825. Miss Mangoni, the GOAT. Or Miss Mangone. Ray Ciccini. Shout out to Mr. Smeeter at Brandywine High School. May he bless us with a 5 on this upcoming exam. And thank you for the $10. And then Dylan Erber for $10 as well. Hi, Heimler. Can you shout out myself, Dylan Erber, my teacher, Mrs. Jackson, my friend Danny Cabazal, and Timmy Gaston, Zach, and my goat, Yaxel Lendeborg. Sal Urs Mannion. Can you please shout out Courtney Jones, Searshaw Mannion, and Mr. Trainer. Zaddy Heimler, you are the tongue saw best. I love you. Love you too. Thank you. Isabella Ozinger. This is from 703. Can you shout out my teacher, Mrs. Rosengrant? Planet Artemis. Can you shout out to my goat, Mr. Hatmaker, NPHS on top, XYZ E3, etc. Shout out Mr. Reichard, or Reichard. We are all getting 5s. Jiggle Joey. Hi, Heimler. Can you please shout out Mrs. Gibbons, Mod 5 APUSH class? You got it. Oh, the tea burps are coming. Oh, that's nice. Here we go. Spry that Febreze. Can you shout out Mrs. Westbrook and say, do it Westbrook's way, please? All right, 7:04 p.m. Tina Hallow, shout out Mr. Buster for being the best APUSH teacher. We are all getting a 5. Star Cam, happy birthday, Mr. Heimler. Well, thank you. And shout out to my teacher, Mr. Heimler, because I self-studied. Oh, no way. That's amazing. Well, good luck to you, and thank you for the $10. That's amazing. P-Man Sam, can you say hi to my friend Pete from Palm Beach? Hey, Pete. Love Stars 88, again for $10. You guys are generous tonight. Shout out to Mr. Hunter's APUSH class, and thank you, Heimler, for being the GOAT and helping all of us through AP season. You are most welcome. GOD3 Cat. Shout out to Miss Kunkelman, period 4. Please wish Kylo, Gio, and Evelyn 5s on their exam. Also, you are so awesome and my GOAT in this class. Aw, thank you. And Ander Zajewski with a donation. Thank you. Kellen Stanfield. Heimler, can you act all joyous with the last name? Shout out to Ivy. Yay! Yay! That was terrible. I'm sorry. Also, tell Matt and Aaron I love them. Aw, that's sweet. I love them too. Soccer AI Daily. Shout out to Miss Glenn from Albuquerque Academy. RSI 1945. Could you shout out Mr. Lincoln from Minnesota, best APUSH teacher ever? Rev the Lord with a $5 donation. Thank you. Trumi. Do you think Henry Clay wipes or lets it crust? I don't even know how to answer that, but it's quite a question. All right, nasty food that bad. Shout out to Mr. Tate the Goat. God bless. Luke NY, happy birthday. Thank you. And thanks for being with us since World. Well, thank you for being with me since World. The Aston. We're still at 7:04, by the way. Could you please say hi to my APUSH teacher, Mr. Dabrowski? He was diagnosed with cancer in December and is a big fan of you. Well, that is very sad to hear. Mr. Dabrowski, good luck to you. And I'm a big fan of you, too. MK15W4Y for $10. Shout out to Mr. Frischman from DRS. Thank you so much. Thank you. Chick Chillington. Hey, Heimler, love your stuff. Can you shout out Mrs. Casey and say, famous Instagrammer Danny M. CO8 has been caught not studying. How will this affect his grade? Predicted it. Meow Lover. Shout out to Miss Orozco's 2nd and 5th period. Harmony Pelkey, thank you. Manuel Hernandez. We love Miss Amy Neeb. Mushroom 4933. Shout out to Coach Smeaton. And I know I'm your favorite student. You don't have to lie. All right, we're at 7:05 now. L. Bogan with a $5 donation. Thank you. Gabby G with a $1 donation. Thank you. Divorced 57. Shout out Miss Teeter's class. We love Big T. Hi EI6GF. This is Layla Thompson. Could you shout out Mr. Loofman, one of the best APUSH teachers? The Rev Lord. Shout out to Mr. Leistman's 4th and 5th period APUSH class. They've been working so hard all year. They're the best. Gooby 0117. Shout out Mr. Moreland. He's the GOAT. Gavin Akiyama. Can you please shout out Mr. Scherer from Colorado? Indeed. Window Observer. Yo, shout out Mr. Olson. Thanks for taking over after the incident, man. ZXT Bruh for $10. Hello, Heimler. Can you shout out Mrs. Rimac from Legacy High School? P.S. You can say that Sato Sugu is influential to U.S. history. You got it. You got it. Lily Skits. Hi, Heimler. Can you please make a shout out to your biggest fans, Layla and Camille? Oh, hey, guys. I'm still reading from 7:05, by the way. Shelly Alepra. Shout out to Mr. Reel's best APUSH teacher. Rumi Stursman. Can you shout out Mr. L from Winters Mill High School? Luke 000. Shout out Miss Patino from James 1 or James I. O'Neill High School. Music Lover with a $2 donation. Thank you. Aaron Kaufman Haft. Shout out to Joe Vergolina, my favorite Brewers fan. I'm a Cubs fan. He's also my APUSH teacher. Gecko3998. It's okay to quote DBQ's. Is it okay to quote on DBQ's happy birthday? It's you're not going to get any points for quoting. So if you've been told not to quote, that's why. So you should always try to say it in your own words rather than quoting. Shorba27, shout out to Mr. McCarthy, chomp chomp. Fab the Comic, shout out to Mr. Olive. He is a goat of a teacher for $10. Must be a goat. Snazzy Naz 27, shout out Mr. Klinef, the goat. Anushka Siddhartha, shout out Miss Conley from CT. We all love you. Connor, can you say Miss Biasy 67 and do the scuba dance? Nailed it. Mars the Knife 7396. Shout out APUSH teacher Mr. Brandon. He's goated. Ms. Coes. Hi Heimler. Shout out Mr. Burke, APUSH, XC, and TNF. Oh, we're at 706 now. Trish N7M. Hello, Heimler. My name is Trish. Can you please shout out my amazing APUSH teacher, Mr. Nguyen? I think it's Nguyen. I think that's right. Thank you so much, King. You are most welcome. Mira Frank. Shout out APUSH GOAT, Mr. Davis. iBogan 1946 with a $2 donation. Thank you. Emo Kid. Shout out to Mr. Sterner's Period 2 APUSH class. Harmony Pelkey. Shout out to Mr. Tomey and his first hour. SC Quattro. Shout out Patrick Lloyd. Esmeralda Quintero. Shout out Mr. Green. APUSH B forever. True 8103. Heimler, do you mind putting your hands in a prayer for edit? There you go. Marquise. We're at 7:06 p.m. Shout out to Mr. Velez's 5th period APUSH class at Colonial High School. Heimler's carrying our APUSH review. Victoria Engsinaz. Sorry, please shout out Coach Lee's class from Burleson High School. Samurai Sword of Steel. Shout out Mrs. Gibson's 9th mod APUSH class, please. William ERP. Shout out to Mr. Cleary from FHS. Emerald 1282 with a $5 chat. Thank you. Jaden for $10. Shout out Miss Cobb Walls, our third block APUSH class. That's very generous, Jaden. Thank you. Crave 5724. Hi, Heimler. Can you please shout out Mrs. Geopfert and Mr. Braun? Triple T. Can you say 6'7", Zaddy Heimler? 6'7". Amir Dana Eifard. Shout out Miss Kelly Kaplowitz. She's so him. Music Lover 3821. Can you please shout out my teacher, Mrs. Lorenzana? And a big shout out to Paragould High School. Mikaka G9R for $20. Wow. Thank you. Shout out Mr. McCarthy and Marlena and Isabel and Adeline and Aurelia and all my friends. Well, that is very sweet. Hope you guys do well. Nate Giamarino. Shout out to Mr. Jones, New York. Sonic Kuhl. Shout out to Mr. DeGidio from 6th period. H. Cone Zero. Shout out to Mr. Bronson from Covenant Life School. Bowl Girl 123. Shout out to Brother Altoff. Best teacher ever. DXV Wee. Shout out to Mr. Pinos. 1st and 6th period from MBA. All right, I'm reading from 707 now. Rough 6796. Shout out my boy Eric Charney. Goat. Sports cards, hit, etc. Can we get a shout out to Mr. Estadiddy, please? LMK, let me know. Sure, you got it. Nathan I. Shout out Miss McMullen and Malachi and 5th period. Mia Mio Range Law. Shout out Mr. Vargas from Miami Palmetto Senior High. 8292 with a HJAJKS with a $2 donation. Thank you. Grant Paul. Shout out Mr. George. Or is that Jorge? Brian. Shout out to the GOAT Doc from my AP World class. Ukanami Yuzuha. Please shout out Mr. Nguyen from Los Amigos High. Val XX22 for $10. Thank you. Shout out Mrs. Phelps from Virginia, my goat, and it's all in caps, so that's how you know it's real. L Bogan. Shout out Miss Bogan's class from Cross Keys High School. Varble. Oh, we're at 708 now. 708. Varble. Please tell Sam Schiller to stop climbing new Trier roof. You got it. Smiley. Shout out to Miss Lale. Listen, Linda's. Gabby G. Shout out Mr. Gizzo. I love you, Heimler. We are getting 5s. Yeah, you are. DJ Dragons. Shout out to Teacher Hill. And then 3 hearts. Simple Void for $10. Thank you. Happy birthday. Also, thank you. Shout out to Mrs. McKeefrey, my goat. Also, please shout out Andrew and Chris. I freaking love you, Heimler. Love Blake. Well, I love you right back. You know that. Whit Williams. Shout out Caroline P. and Whit W. and do the 6-7. Chud Brethren for $2. Thank you. Mize Reza. Shout out Miss Amato. Give us 5 big booms for good luck. Boom, 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 boom. I learned that last year, and now I can't remember if I did it right. Hopefully that works for your 5s. 8292 HJAJKS with another donation. I think that's another one for $2. Thank you. Jaden Pick. Shout out Jaden Pick, please, so I don't get a 2. You got it. You're going to get a 5. I feel it. Martini0101. Shout out Mr. Scott from CPHS. Gianna Davidson. Ms. Ferlauto from Rutherford High School. So glad you were my teacher this year. GG. Aw. The Communist Dog. You low-key forgot to mention the Tung Tung tribe. Georgiana Lee with a $1 chat. Thank you. Loser K. Heimler, can you shout out Mr. Dyer and Mr. Carney? And teary emojis. Neva A. 9626. Shout out Mr. Campbell. Go Michigan. Loco 9825. Shout out Miss Mangone. Kiwi the Fruit. Shout out the Ruck from Lane Tech. Go Mr. Ruckoff. Logic 999. This is 7:09 p.m. Shout out to the GOAT Dr. Ray. We shall keep our brain cows milked. Nathis Missing. Hi, Heimler. Can you shout out to Rohit? And are you planning on remaking AP Gov videos next year? It is possible. We shall see. They need to be remade. Angie loves churros. Shout out Mr. Perez and First Period. Thank you. Antonio Calaf. Shout out Triple T and say 676767. Lord Dot. Shout out Adi Ray, Mr. Lagoon, and Western Tech. All right. Still from 709, Emma Calor. Shout out Mr. Olmstead and my goated APUSH FGGHS. Laney for $10. Thank you. Say hello to Mr. McKittrick's APUSH class. Hey, guys. Please wish 5s for Laney, Zaray, Alex, Lily, Lena, and Ishita. Shout out Full Shear High School Band and Color Guard. We love you, Heimler. I wish you all 5s, and I love you too. Rishi Fishy for $1. Thank you. Trip W. Tell Mr. Simpson that you're milking our brain cows. Well, yeah, I am. Blaine's 3780. Shout out to Mr. Landefield and Mr. Burke. Also, happy birthday, my glorious king. Thank you. Ririana. Hi, shout out Mr. Wandrak, please. Apples for $20. Make a 6-7 joke. It'll be legendary. I'm not even an APUSH. LOL. Here's 20. How do you make a joke out of 6-7? I'm sure it would be legendary, but oh my gosh, on the spot. What did the 6 say to the 7? 6-7. That's all you. That's it. All right, McKenna Karchevsky for $10. Thank you. Shout out Saint Hilaire or Hillary from Ohio. Angie 221. Shout out my teacher Miss Goggin from BHS. Huzzah. Emerald 1282. Shout out my goat Sarah in the chat and our teacher Miss Pilardi for teaching us. Shout out to this bald guy for making videos for us to pass. Hashtag love. Revolver Shalashaska. Mr. Seats will never be found. That's for $20. I hope you will. I hope you will be found. Elliot 6049 for $10. Thank you. Can you say shout out to Mr. Denise's first period APUSH class? You are all getting 5s, even Luke, somehow. Jackson Long for $10. Shout out to Mr. Hoskins. Shout out to Mr. Hoskins, AP World from HMB High School. I'm low-key cooked, but he's goated. Edit your response. I'm at 7:10 p.m., by the way. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Hamal, for being an awesome APUSH teacher. Sad to be your last class, but glad we were your best one. Aryar Kia, just a sec. Can you shout out, there's Aryar Kia. Can you shout out Sophia Fushiguro Trung? Jordan Be Irritated for $10. Shout out Miss Burkhart and my EP friends Reagan, Fatima, Charlotte, Winnie, Tessa, Cushy, and more. Can you also say do in a really loud voice? It's something we say in our class, pronounced do. There you go. Jordan Be Irritated again. Thank you. Shout out to Miss Burkhart. Oh, no, that's the same one I just read. Okay. Cooper Stupid. Hi, Emma, can you please shout out Miss Roselle from Venice High School? We hate the band and love Jimmy Carter. Eric Valdez. Tat my name on your head if I get a 5. Okay. No promises. No promises, but I'm sure it'll be a fine one. Patrick McRee. Shout out to Miss Grandicio from Bishop Shanahan. Very honorable mention to Miss Ivkovich, who helped me get a 5 on AP Gov last year. Daniel Thighs Men. Happy birthday, thank you. Shout out to Mr. Lieberum, the ultimate performative male. R. Boysvert for $10. Shout out Mrs. Korivos, APUSH class, and Webster Thomas High. Zen114 Zen. Shout out Mr. Noel from Sequoia High School. We are all rubbing the Buddha for a 5 on the exam. Lord Oat. Scuba, please, Heimler. Again, maybe that could serve as the rest of the scubas if that, yeah. All right. Kevin Vivo. Heimler, can you please shout out the GOAT, Mr. Brown? Also, please tell him to return my tung Sahur trading cards. Thank you. Bloxers. Shout out to the best APUSH teacher, George Washington's wife, Mrs. Waller at SHS High School. Abby Wright. We're at 7:11 p.m. now. Shout out to Mrs. McNeil for her awesome APUSH class and Mr. Phelps for his awesome historical context in AP Lang from Lord Bodetort High School. Logan Balins for $10. Shout out Mr. Gwynn at LMGHS. Mr. Gwynn, howdy. Nicholas 9980. Can you shout out Mrs. Rusi, the best APUSH teacher? Saytek Edits. Hello, Heimler. My name is Saytek. Can you please shout out my AP World teacher, Mr. Wright, at Carter G. Woodson High School? Sophia Velasquez. We're at 7-Eleven now. Shout out Mrs. Crichton and Miss O'Keefe. Noah Moffat. Can you please shout out Miss Coonrant at Ashley High School. Thank you, my goat. Frosty13. Shout out to 5th and 6th hour Mr. McBride from FHS. DHWIJ Patel. Heimler, please shout out me. Shores C67 class. Wolfpack. Shout out my beautiful, majestic, glorious, magical, intelligent, fantastical goat of an APUSH teacher, Lord Holthus from Whitfield Academy, period 7. That's amazing. Michelle DE2JT. We're at 712 now. MS from Hockaday. Her baby is the cutest as well. David Mello. Lock in Innovation High School. Jersey City in the house. That means you periods 2 and 5. Time to earn the right to shave your teacher's head. Oh my. Good luck with that. Why Gibb? Shout out to Mr. Kemmerling from WHS for working very hard to prepare us for the exam, specifically 6th period. Aiden Phillips. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Dry and Jumbo. Hams. Shout out to Finney Shear from NHS for milking our brains all year. All us young bright scholars are getting 5s. If y'all are just coming in, I'm seeing some of these in the chat. If you're just coming in, I did the review already. So that is, you just go back to the beginning of the stream and it's about a little under 2 hours. Now I'm just doing the super chats, the shout outs that people have paid for. And so if you're looking for the review, just go back to the beginning. I'm impressed that all you guys are still here. I love you guys. And you know, my kids are showing me all the all the TikToks that are getting made of me doing these shout outs. And I'm like, somebody has to like sit here and watch this whole thing and wait for me to say something goofy or weird. And hey, respect. You know what else I respect? I already showed y'all the Taylor shirt that I got for my birthday. Look what else I got. I got Crocs, but I got focus. There it is. Look, there's Taylor in a Reputation suit. Oh my gosh. I'm telling y'all, I'm all in. I am all in. Anyway, Chivalry Sword. We're at 712. Can you say communism, but with some oomph to it? Communism. K not found. Shout out Miss Wolovich and Porkian Party Free My Max. Cell 6578. Shout out to the best APUSH teacher, Mr. Peters from Midwood High School. Yes. Ryan Wu, 713. Why do I keep losing focus here? Come on. There we go. How likely do you think the DBQ this year could be on westward expansion? That's what some people are saying. I don't know. I really don't know.
You're not focused.
Yeah, no, I just got to be again. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know anything about the DBQ. I wish I could be more helpful. Shout out to, let me get more center here. Maybe it'll keep focus better. Shout out to Mr. Jacano from Gaither in Tampa. Super Savvy Gamer. Yo, Heimler, you the GOAT. I watch you all the time. Also, can you tell Huz to add me? Sebas_1009 W Wingman. Kathy 1308. Can you shout out Mr. Riley from Central High School? SD Adanlet. Shout out Miss Mon from East Orange STEM Academy. She was recently inducted into the National Teachers Hall of Fame. My goodness. Congratulations, Miss Mon. Corner chair. Thanks. Shout out Miss Glenn from Albuquerque Academy. Fluffy X Wings. Please tell Miss Nazliklen that I appreciate everything she's done for our class and for putting up with my goofiness in class /footcam. Mr. Crucci. Shout out Mr. Gomont's second period APUSH class in Hialeah Senior High School. Wishing everyone passes. Same. 12 Jake 30. This is 7:14 p.m. Can you shout out my teacher, Mr. Makia, and say, you got to bring the sizzle and the steak. You got to bring the sizzle and the steak on this DBQ. Fishy Feet. Shout out to my goat, Mrs. Lee. I love you. Convex Gecko. Shout out Mr. Dingus and Miss Simmerly. 444 Taylor. Shout out Miss Salento's 8th period APUSH class from Taylor, Maddie, Nolia, and Aaliyah. XSHR 1735. Thank you, Heimler. Well, you're welcome. Andrew Herlock for $10. Thank you. Shout out to Southeast Bullock High and the APUSH GOAT Coach Hammett. We're all getting 5s. P-Man Sam. Can you shout out Chris for inventing growing? Sure. Okay. Get under there. There we go. Hopefully I'll keep my focus better. P-Man Sam, shout out Chris for inventing growing. Got you. I'm at 7:15. Did I say that? Natasha, shout out Mrs. Beaver, 7th period from Flowery Branch High School. Tell her to round up Natasha's grade to an A, please. Prototype 0. Shout out Miss Cunningham's 1st period. Lordot, Mr. Heimler, are we hitting up Arby's later together? Got to get that meat mountain. Per Sassy Jackson, please shout out Miss Rogers from AHS. Shy Pineapple 777, you were the only reason I got a 4 on AP Human Geo and AP World, and you'll do it again for APUSH. Well, congratulations. Thank you truly. And shout out Mrs. Sellinger. Hot Fart 7965. Shout out Mrs. Thompson, GOAT. Daniel Carrillo. Shout out to Steger from H-Town. M. Champ. We're at 7:16. Can you shout out Mrs. Fiorito from Victor Senior High? She had a great lesson on the big stick policy where she used a bamboo stick and intimidated like TR. Wow, I love to hear that. That's awesome. Josh Walk for $20. Thank you. Very generous. Shout out Mrs. McMullen from 5th period and Malachi, the APUSH master. Mrs. McMullen, if you see this, please raise my grade. Rishi, R6Y. Shout out Triple T and Babo. DKEV7RP. Please shout out MHS period 5 Busser Gang. On Samuel Soul, we about to Fogarty Max for that 5. 676767. All right, we're at 617. No, 7. We're at 716. You guys are killing me. Ginny Joe. Shout out Mr. Stafford. His brain cows are milked. Anika Bat. Shout out to Mrs. Santiago from Clarkston North, John Locke's #1 fam. Who is who 123. Shout out Mr. Moore from New Dorp High School. Zen114 Zen. Can you tell Alex Leadal to get off Deep Woken and do his hyperdoc? You got it. Angela Weiss. Shout out to Miss Gibson's period 2 Will North. Joe 8828. Shout out Mr. Moore from DOMHS. This is from Jonathan C, Danilo, Christopher P, Dale, Eric, and Nate, by the way. Peachy 4180. Shout out all the Himajashis taking APUSH right now. Anna Bellel. Can you shout out Miss Mino from EHS? Oblivion Y2K. Shout out Mrs. Johnson from APUSH. Hopefully we all get a 5 on the AP exam. Psycho Gamer with a $1 donation. Thank you. Nick Piazza 23 with $20 and the first one of 7:18 p.m. Shout out Mrs. Gibson's 6th mod. Cuz is getting a 1. Oh man. Poor Cuz or Cause. I'm sorry for him, her, them. It's rough. Nader Dog for $10. Shout out Coach Connor's APUSH class. Britain's a LARPer. Hey, Coach Connor's class. Isabella Ozinger. Can you shout out my teacher, Miss Rosengrant from Hillsborough, New Jersey? Winston Gee. Shout out Mr. Dilg from Viewpoint High School. Triplet X3M. Shout out Mr. Perry. We watched all your vids in class. Well, thank you. Cutesy Angels. Please shout out Mr. Allen. He is the GOAT. SML3LQ. Shout out Mr. Peters from Midwood High School. Jiminy Cricket with a $5 donation. Thank you. Moose Driving. Can you shout out the Big ZD at NBHS and tell him he's an Aura Maxer? Alex Quevedo. Shout out to Dr. Richard C. Marsh. Gladiator WX. Shout out Miss Parks, third period class, APUSH class at HVA. You got it. Quinn Lawton from 7:18 p.m. and a donation of $2. Thank you. Rex Awesome, donation $2. Thank you. Jordan Pickett, shout out Miss Wall and Mr. Hess. Jacob Bryan, shout out Mr. Orendes, fifth period AP class in BHS. Drax, a lot of questions. Shout out Mr. Floyd from Tift County High School. I love you, Papa Floyd, from Henry, Max, and Pratouche. Kid Core Tugami. Shout out Mr. Lupo. Toof 7101. Shout out to Mr. Thompson. Eli Mace 67. Mr. Wagner the GOAT. Kian Sun 1. Please shout out to Mr. Peterson. Love your shirt, by the way. Aw, thanks. Thanks. I love it too. Axe Jag Films. Shout out to my boy, Dr. Swierzinski from Lando, who was the GOAT at AP World. Daisy Strikes. We're at 7:19 p.m., by the way, 7:19. Daisy Strikes. Hi. Shout out Miss Pinto and Mr. Agavino. Glazer of Donuts. Shout out Mr. Henriksen from third period. No. Shout out Mrs. Hendrickson, third period from Olmsted. Fernando Ramos for $10. Thank you. Heimler, please shout out Mr. DeGedio and his sixth period class. Hey, guys. Appreciate that. America be big. Shout out to Mr. DeGedio. We need 15 extra points, please. You heard it here. Beachside Pool. Shout out Mrs. Phelps, Lake Braddock Secondary. Thanks, Queen. Lillian Murr. Heimler, I love you. Love you too. Shout out to Mr. Hatfield from New Richmond. Yes, for $10. Thank you. Shout out Mr. Llewellyn. It's his last year teaching APUSH at Clear Creek. Well done, Mr. Llewellyn. Well done. Mariana Garcia. Shout out Mrs. Crichton. Shredded Waffles with a $2 donation. Thank you. Madeline P3V. Can you please shout out Mr. Mucci and his G period class? It would make his day, I think. I hope so. Leanie G. Please say happy birthday to Mr. Stephen Wall from Melrose. Happy birthday. You two share a birthday. Birthday twins. You're the GOAT of APUSH. Thanks, Heimler. Jesse M. with a $5 donation. Thank you. Absolute Wanker. Shout out to Mr. Murphy from Walter Panis High School. Jesse Koo. Could you shout out Mrs. Horns, APUSH class at Pauling High School? Yes. Sam's Nasser. Can you give a shout out to Mr. Wickland from Hillel Yeshiva? Oriel Gaines. Shout out Dr. Isaacson for being the best history teacher and always dedicating himself to helping our class. Sidebar, have a great rest of your year. That Dino Dude. Shout out to K. Savage Savaglia, the GOAT. Andrew Hopper. Please shout out Mr. Teague, please. Gail Carbone Pagan with a $2 donation. Thank you. Gabriella Olmos Churchill, $1. Thank you. Kid Core Togami. Hi from Sarah. Shout out to Mr. Lupo. Cash PG 2009. Shout out Mr. T Brown. He is the GOAT. Livid 3145 with a $5 donation. Thank you. Andrew Weber. Shout out Dr. Kingram. Someone somewhere. We are now at 7:20 p.m. Shout out Miss Godschalk's APUSH class. We'll get 5. Do Triple T. Shout out to Mr. Nagi. The GOAT. His favorite number is 67. Jesse M. I got a 5 in my AP World exam because of you. It's nice. Good work. Emin Salim. Shout out Mr. Miller from Saugus High School. Jocelyn. Shout out Miss Snyder from West Virginia. Will Sinagra. Shout out Mr. Rubens, G Block. We are all getting 5s. Aubrey Erhard with a $2 donation. Thank you. Bran. Shout out my teacher, Mr. Ellington, author of Fabric of a Nation, by the way. What a book. That's a great book. And he's your teacher? Wow, that's cool. Tell him I said, hey. His was one of the books. I had like 5 books in front of me while I was writing these videos. His was one of them. Cherry Bomb. Hi, Heimer. Can you say hi to my GC, a.k.a. the Titanic swim team? We love your videos. Chompa Rice Gang. Cubbyhole. Can you please shout out my boy, Mr. Willicky, for turning a blind eye always. Also, shout out Hot Dog, please. Mr. Sir. Shout out my APUSH teacher, Mrs. Pabon. Name IQ3ZS with a $2 donation. Thank you. Logan Norman. Shout out Miss Brackett, the GOAT. That Turtle. Shout out Mr. Shuckman's class. Eva Caralaza Rides with a $2 donation. Thank you. Warren 2862. Shout out Mr. Tempio at Dakota High School. Artist Hanyu Song. Shout out to Mr. Harris from SPB. Good luck to all the APUSH students. Michael's Prime. Can you say down with Chris B? Yep. Stella VN7, etc. Shout out Mr. Van Dyke from Mater Dei High School. Quinn Lawton. Shout out Miss Julia. Stephen Peng for $2. Thank you. Person who likes dinosaurs. Shout out my teacher, William Kenny. Gucci 7905 with a $1 chat. Thank you. Levi Snyder, also $1. Daniela, another $1. Thank you. Muda 09. Everybody get in the car now. We're leaving this car now. What the impossible? This isn't the car. No. Hermit Purple. and that was in the amount of $6.70. Okay. Gail Carbone Pagan. Shout out to Miss Heath. We love you. Tongue. Mr. Canny, full uncanny. Hi, Heimlich. Can you shout out our AP Human Geo teacher, Miss Myhall, for torturing us all year, and RIP all the trees that died for our packets. Hardit Singh for $10. Thank you so much. California. Yo, happy birthday. Thank you. Please shout out Miss Clark from New Buffalo, Michigan. She is the best ever. We are all getting 5s. Naomi Ludwig. Shout out Smith, teacher of the nation. This is Naomi. Fried Alucia. Shout out Mr. Davis and D Block APUSH. Roll Heifs. Fanta Cole. Can you shout out Ardrey? Kell High School. Victoria Wright. Shout out Mr. Brookshire's APUSH 5th block class. Future pre-law student. Shout out Mr. Brandon, 5th period class. And shout out to Rose. All right, we have now made it to 7:21. You guys went crazy tonight. Goodness gracious. Lee Whoop. Shout out Mr. Pietrzak. He's the actual GOAT. Cat eat cats. Can you shout out Mr. Parsley? Stephen Peng. Mr. Walters is cool. Gray 5430. Shout out Miss Norvilla's 5th block. He's the shout out to Norvilla's 5th block. He's the GOAT. We love you. Gretchen Schulman with a $1 donation. Thank you. Eva Karalaza. Shout out Mr. Katovitz. Hadley Podolsky. Shout out Mrs. Wall, Mr. Hess, and Mr. Bear. Kenny, HW, etc. Shout out to Mr. Calamano. We love you, King Cal. Miles Boomer. Shout out to Mrs. Robkirk. Sir Extra. Shout out Mark Hunyadi. First name basis. Maddie, and a bunch of ones. Shout out the real GOAT AP teacher, Mrs. Hoffman. I have memes. It's on your left, it's Triple T Tyranny. Clips Daily 24. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Folman. Vincent Mays. Shout out Mrs. Crocker's 5th at Santana High School. Mateo Dennis. Shout out Mr. Calarina from Jesse Bethel High School. Goose 6787. Shout out the GOAT, Mr. Ray, and from Kenmore East. Solaz XRR for $5. Thank you. Prototype. Protype 0. Shout out Tung, Miss Cunningham's first period. Chloe UK9. Miss Quinn at EHTHS. She'll throw hands if we get ones. Rian Kapoor for $1. Thank you. Cole Rent Schler. Please tell Mr. Hill to bump Cole's grade up to an A because he's going to get a dank 5. Not just any 5, a dank 5. All right. Allison R2. Shout outs to the Big B, a.k.a. Mr. Bravada, Parker, Samantha, Mia, Addie, Drew, and Carson. Also, another shout out to all of Bravada third period, a 6-7. Riley Key. Shout out Big Sights. Heimler, you to goat. Thomas Bennett. Shout out to Edward Minev's class. We love you, Edward M. Ducky. GG. Shout out to my friend Nathuja, who pooped himself. Okay. And by the way, if you're just coming in, the review is at the beginning of the stream. You can just go all the way back if you're looking for the actual content. I'm reading through all the super chats, all the shout outs at this point. So we'll be here for a while. Hacky Sacky for $10. Shout out Mrs. Grappy, Niceville High School. Go Eagles. Goat of APUSH. Eagle. Fire. The Louisiana Purchase was the biggest example of, bro, trust me, it's a good deal. It's well said. ST Sing is. Shout Mr. Mahan or Man is the GOAT and he lowers cortisol. Well, that's nice. Mr. French Rye. Mr. Taylor's 5th period will get 5s on the APUSH test. Look in the camera and say, Mr. Taylor, you're the GOAT. Ton to her. We all getting 5s. Let's go. CN Rail Fan Guy. Shout out to HYCE who demystifies all things trains. Tanner E3G with a $5 donation. Thank you. Elizabeth. We're at 722, by the way. Shout out Miss Raz, 4th period. APUSH from Pittsford Mendon High School. We are getting 5s. Also, I love you. Thank you. Olivia Kate, me trying to impress Heimler Trade. Okay. Sam Soom, can you shout out King Churda? Thank you, you're saving me. No 5677. Happy birthday, Daddy Heim. You're the GOAT. Thank you. Jiminy Cricket, shout out Miss Civ's APUSH class. We're going for 5s. JHQRTS, shout out Miss Alexandra Wepner. Jack Rich, yo Heimler, you my dog. Shout out to Mr. Gotcha. Gabriella Almost Churchill. Shout out Mr. Bondergoat from Gabby and Sam. Sammy GL7CO. Shout out Miss Hoyler. Sammy, Zara, Sahil, and Vanessa. Anders Cubes. Shout out Mr. Richard. Say, we do a little trolling. B Heights. Shout out T Moore at Walled Lake Northern. It is me, that guy. Shout out to Miss Lopo from Dakota High School. SVJ1127. Shout out Mrs. Santiago's 8th period class. Pre-2921. Shout out to Fratch. You and Heimler are the best. 6-7. Solaz XRR. Shout out Miss Milliken. 7th period. Jane Kirk will forever be in our hearts. Cute Premium. Shout out to Miss Sampat. C. Falcon for $20. Very generous. Thank you. Shout out Mr. Boyle, the greatest APUSH and AP World teacher ever. Thank you. And thank you. Breaker Boys for $5. Thank you. L. Struck. Shout out Miss Christians at Howell High School. Rex, awesome. Thank you to my dad / APUSH teacher, Sir B. Dizzle. Cranberry Juice. Shout out to Raquel and Seb. Y'all will do great. I love you. Espied MF. Shout out Mr. Espino, 6767. Future pre-law student. Can you look into the camera and say, Rose is going to get a 5 on APUSH, or else the whole world will burn. Big shout out to Mr. Brandon. Ansel M. Bell for $10. Can you give a quick shout out to Scott Meslow from Westminster and his class JE Vacation Cats? Shout out to Mrs. Nazlikian Zatikian, push, period 4. Helios X1, shout out Mrs. Gibson's 5th mod APUSH class. Hot Cheetos, shout out Mr. Allmacher at Henry Ford. We love you, Unc Mo. We're all getting 5s. We're all getting a 5, guys. Love second hour. Kara Mella, and we're at 723. These are submitted at 723. Shout out to Ms. Gomez. It is her first year teaching APUSH. She is the GOAT. That's good to hear. Ms. Gomez, good luck. Sounds like you did a good job. Ari27, happy Teacher Appreciation Week, Mr. Otaka. Best teacher in the school. And thank you, Heimler, for making me not nervous for the test on Friday. Well, that's sweet. Soph Annalise, big shout out to our GOAT, Mr. Giddis, for making APUSH fun. May the DBQ be ever in our favor. Layla McDonald, shout out Mrs. Koffel, also happy birthday. Thank you. Shiana Buckle, look at the camera and say, Eric, where's the computer? Lord Foot Lettuce, shout out to the GOAT, Mr. James Freeman, for getting me a 100 A+ on my APUSH exam. Ball Right and Evil Mr. Ewing send their regards. Name IQ 3ZS. Shout out Dario, Fallon, Augustin, Isa, Danny, Adler, and wish them all a tongue-tastic APUSH exam. Thank you so much, Heimler. You the actual GOAT and saved me. MK15 for $10. Look into the camera and say, you're the GOAT, Mr. Frischman. Hope that was good. Chin Yamathulani. Shout out Clark, 4th block class. Heimler, you saved us. Primitive Gamer. Shout out to Miss Elmquist at Pine Lake. Diamond Kid with a $5 donation. Thank you. Melanie Hernandez. Shout out Mr. Young, the best teacher and the GOAT. Victor LeBlanc for $20. Appreciate it. Heimler, you're the GOAT. And can you shout out Mrs. Demuras, period 7, group 5. We all need 5s. Joe Man. Shout out to Coach Shoemake at Covington High School. User NT7SK. Shout out Mr. Mansdorf, Alexa and Izzy getting a 5. JM Wallace for $10. Shout out to Mrs. Wallace's class from Regina Catholic. Bob Schlag. Shout out Tung Mahar, and then like 10 fire emojis. User DU3. Shout out my teacher, Mr. Mason. High key for real, no cap. Say, don't look at me. Don't look at me. Because he says that every class. Lucky Cat X. Shout out Mr. Edmondson at Osborne Park from that period 7 table. Even Shu can get a 5. Razan Mushin for $10. Thank you. Please tell Mr. Gallows to give us extra credit. Mr. Gallows, here it is. Michael Fernandez, just want to wish good luck to my students. Love Fernie. Hashtag Somerset Academy. Oh, that's a teacher. Love that. Good luck, guys. All right, we're at 724. And another one coming in from Hot Fart. Shout out Miss Thompson, Tongue Thompson. Nonchalant 67 Dubai Chocolate. Shout out Mr. Smith from Crofton High School. Unseen Doom with $1. Thank you. Kari 2274. Shout out to Zachary Costa, Tung Sahur. Layla 0397. Shout out Mr. Ramsey. He's amazing. Thank you, Heimler. You carried our grades. Well, you're welcome. Thank you. Dude, IDK and then threes for $10. Thank you. Shout out to my dear friends Audrey, M, and Sky, who are all watching along with me. Thank you, Heimler. You carried me through the last 3 years. Also, shout out to Mr. Pina, best history teacher ever. Antonio Sanchez. Shout out Luke, James, Wyatt, Ida B, Wells, Triple T. Nina Dolise. Shout out Mr. Dyer. You know him, and he's the GOAT. If I know him, then he's definitely the GOAT. Lyric G with a $2 donation. Thank you. J Diamond Kid with a $5. Thank you. Layla Fur 34. Shout out to Mr. Bear. Superman's Comet for $10. Can you say, shout out to Mrs. Anderson, the greatest APUSH teacher of all time. You know it's true. B. Mitch F. Shout out Mr. Wainwright. He has surgery, so he won't be here for our exam on Friday, but he is a great history teacher and deserves some representation. Well, Mr. Wainwright, good luck. I hope you get well. All right, I'm reading now from 725. These are submitted at 725. Nate ADKI, look into the camera and say, shout out Glue Guys and Mrs. Bill. Vib VXS. Yo, Heimler, can you shout out Mr. Meenan, the Meanster, in a second period APUSH class? I know y'all are watching. Millie Star, shout out Miss Becker. Monarch Power, shout out to Mr. Johnson, the GOAT. M1SY7C, shout out Mr. Romans, 7th period at Townview, my GOAT, Heimler. Ella MZ6GK, thank you, Heimler. My APUSH teacher didn't teach us this year. We just started Unit 8 and we haven't done an LEQ yet. You are saving me. Lauren, prom? Well, look at that. Look at that. Cinephile 15. Vote for Gavin for senior class VP. Namelin 12. Shout out Miss Lopez from her favorite Core 4. Caillou Hawk. Shout out Mr. Poland and Walid Ahmed. Christopher Newell. Mr. Heimler, can you look in the camera and say, shout out Mr. Hiller and Tung. Mrs. Hiller. Shout out Mrs. Hiller and Tung. The looking in the camera is hard because I know I got to look back at these things. Ellie Bonesteel with $2. Thank you. Natoda Great. Shout out Mr. Hine. Oh, shout out Mr. Heine. Rhymes with Heimler. Appalachian. J Diamond Kid. Shout out to Mr. Costa. Another bald man like you. Baldy's got to stick together. Bailey Little. 676767. Shout out Cole Martell and Mr. Seitz. Celia Plow. Shout out Mr. Foss from CT. We love him. Rusty Peanuts. Shout out William Howard Taft and 10 Sister Farming. Corn, beans, bathtub, beans, whole hog, beans, squash. These are submitted at 726. Excuse me. 726. Unseen Doom. Shout out Miss Fitzhenry, TLHS. Thank you, Heimler. Zachary Lay with a $10 donation. Thank you. Shout out to Fawn, Namiverse, Lee, Zly, and Mr. Evans. Tippy Canoe and Tyler too. It's clobbering time. A game within a game. How meta. I'm the awesome yet humble Heimler's history. Enjoy massive amp. RR Nama. Shout out Mr. Bussy from your 4th hour. On Nixon's Soul, we're all getting a 5. Ellie Bonesteel. Shout out Mrs. T. Mr. Pickle. Benson and Tanner are so cooked. Please help them. Anaya P2561. Shout out my APUSH teacher, Mrs. Roth. She is like the best teacher and very intelligent. Thank you, Mrs. Roth, for all your help. Eggs8711. Shout out Miss Willowdeck Holland. You to real history. Gully7905. Shout out Mrs. Couch. Tyler Owen. I getting a 5. Logan, can you shout out Mrs. Billingsley again and say Logan is the glue guy? Ryan Arietta. Shout out my goat, Mr. Hosington from NHS. Lincoln Thomas for $4.99. Thank you. We're reading from chat submitted at 7:27 now. Maybe Bells. Can you shout out Miss Cunningham and tell her thank you for being such an amazing teacher and that she's the GOAT? Shout out to her 6th and 7th. Respectable 1245. Missed WAP Live, but shout out Mrs. Caldwell. Olivia, F1T5L with L with a $5 chat. Thank you. Eshal Hassan. Shout out to Mr. Closter. No, Miss Closter. Shout out to Miss Closter. John Brown is her man for real. Padro is bot PSM for $10. Thank you. You carry APUSH. Thank you, Gang-a-lang. Shout out to Ryder for reminding me to tune in. Hair FHGG. Shout out to Mr. Austin NG from Fremont High School, California. Millie Starr. Shout out to Miss Becker. We love you, Queen. These are submitted at 7:28. Oh Bob, oh Bob, oh Bob. Shout out to Miss Porini, EHS, you the GOAT. Tathan 650. Shout out Mr. Miller from Central Columbia. Alex Toy 632. Should I put Heimler on my Tamagotchi Life Island? I saw somebody do that. If that makes you happy, you do it. CY is chill. Shout out to Coach Walton. Arian 7857. Mr. Logicano told me to tell you and everyone else, do not get arrested. Shout out to the big Lojo and third period. Rocco Barkov with $2. Thank you. Ethan Wilson. Please bless us, Heimler. Our class needs help. Also, shout out Jonathan Sayward. You blessed. Jay the Fish. Shout out to Poppin' Fuss, a.k.a. or Pappin' Fuss, a.k.a. Pap the Economics, and Alani Lover from your favorite students. Caleb LeBeau. Mr. Stern, give Caleb better than a 4 on his DBQ. Michael Fernandez, coming back. Shout out to my students. I'm super proud of all of you. Love Fernie. Hashtag Somerset Academy. He must love you guys. He must love you. Thank you, Michael. Millerman. Hey, Heimler, can you give a shout out to Miss Pepper's APUSH 11.51 class at SAR High School? Heimler is not God. That's a quote from Miss Pepper. And you know what? I agree with her. I do. I would make a terrible God. Livid 3145. Shout out to Mr. Schmouder and third period APUSH at EHS. Cow Talk 3. Shout out to Miss Ryberty. William Howard Taft's descendant. John Brown Fan Club. Mr. Hoyt. Sonyan from the American School of Asunción. Robo Hobo. What's happening, Mr. History? Any chance you'll take the AP test for me? Shout out the GOAT, Miss Herzig, Timu, and Liam Chat. Period 6, let's get some 5s. I don't think I'm going to take that test. That sounds terrible, but good luck. CJ90, shout out Timothy Moore at WLN and Fishy, his pet. Cooper 0012, can you shout out Miss Vogel, 3rd and 5th period, please? Aurelia Zohar, shout out Miss Barber for being the best AP World teacher last year, and to Miss Weeks for being the APUSH GOAT. Doodles Cat, shout out my teacher, Miss Kukuza. Thank you. Joe Wicks with a $2 donation. Thank you. 11 LXNAA. Shout out Miss Orozco from JVHS. We love you, Heimler. Mr. Ratatoing for $10. Shout out to my period 3 and period 6 Rams. We will make history this Friday. Heimler with the big assists. Love you guys to the moon. Love G. Wow, that warms the heart. Sathvik Coulter. Shout out Miss Rosengrant. SZSE says Zenny. Shout out for Healy. #1 fan of Abigail Adams. Legit. Kashik Daddy. Shout out Miss Bronze, 6th period class. Lyric G777. Mr. Bradley for being the best APUSH teacher. Daniel Dong. Shout out to Mr. Iki and wish Daniel to get a 5. Wells Fargo is a bank. Himes, what's up? Can you shout out the big JR in his 2nd hour class? Anthony Pauletti. Tung bless us all, but Sigma curse Jack Crane. Maxim Rabarian for $50. Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Hey, Heimler, can you shout out my teacher, Miss Bingham? She's super nice, explains things really well, and deserves it. Your videos have helped me a ton this year. Thank you for being part of my journey, Max. Well, Max, that is very generous of you, and thanks for taking the time to encourage a bald man. I'm glad we got to do it together. Tung God. Please shout out Mr. Voss Burlington. He is the best. I love Cardi. Shout out to the best APUSH teachers, Miss Washington and Mr. Gilpin. CJ the Quick. To what extent would Tung Sahur affect the American Revolution? Oh, I think it would have gone the other way, honestly. Krillin Shrimpin. Shout out to Mr. Persigliotti. Most goated APUSH teach. Abby Wright. Turning G cubed to T cubed. Theology, treasure, and tribute. That's actually better. I like that. Will Voigt Haler. Shout out Zartler, Smithtown East. We getting 5s. Will. Rocco Barkov. Shout out Kevin Medeiros, a great APUSH teacher. Julie Rodriguez with a $1 donation. Just one F0. Shout out Mr. Blood's 3rd and 6th hour classes at Wyoming High School. Thank you for your help this entire year. Curbs the camera guy. Shout out Mrs. Beam from North Warren. Us students are nothing but grateful for her, and we appreciate all she's done to help us get our 5s. P.S. She'll never have better debates than our class's debates. That's for $10. Thank you so much. Very generous. Joe Wicks. Wicks's kids, Pineapple Terrence, will get you a 5. LCYO Kai. Shout out Miss Nicholson and her 3rd and 6th period. Say she's the goat that needs to chill. Bro, chill. 6-7. Cow Talk. By the way, I'm reading from 732 now, which is wild. We're 30 minutes into the stream, and I'm reading from 732. Goodness gracious. Cow Talk. Give us the gospel of knowledge, Heimler. Shout out to the best APUSH teachers, Sophie, Lynn, Mina, Yunu, Maria, and Amaya. Seawire. Free Roxanne Matson. Bobby Bug Eyes for $10. This is likely my last history class of high school, so just wanted to thank you for helping me through both AP Euro and APUSH. You're the GOAT, Heimler. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad we got to do it together, and good luck with whatever is next for you. Ryan Byers, shout out to Mr. Hansen's APUSH class, and good luck on the exam. XXX and Soccer, shout out Miss Smith from Haynes High School, 1st period. Arth Bihard Waj. Hi, Mr. Heimler. Thanks for all your help. Please shout out my teachers, Mr. Foy, Mr. Crawford, and Mr. Troy Taylor from St. Francis High School in Mountain View. Mr. Foy loves you and loves playing your videos in class. Go BBT. And that's for $20. Did I say that? That's amazing. Well, I appreciate you guys. Mr. Foy, thanks for playing my videos in class. That is an absolute privilege, and I don't take it lightly. So thank you so much. This is awesome. All right, let's give my voice a bit of a break. How we doing with you guys? You guys doing good? Heimler, is it true that you're retiring? No, I'm not retiring. Yeah, if you're looking for the review, go back to the beginning of the stream. I did all the review already. All right. Let's keep going. All right, I'm reading from 7:33 p.m. now. Actually, one sec. All right. Yeah, 7:33 p.m. now. Pack 229. Can you shout out Mr. Canavan? You're the best. Tyler Hartland. We love Miss Lopo and Henry Clay. Moshua 8375. Shout out Mrs. Harris. Fart Master for $10. Truth Nuke. Love that name. Julie Rodriguez. Shout out EHTS. We all getting a 5. You heard. Hashtag Miss Quinn. User of 1J. Shout out Mr. D. Cleary from St. Seb's. Alexandra Dubois. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Baker, and his 4th period. We're at 7:33. Did I say that already? Window Observer for $20. Very generous. Yo again from me and my friend. Shout out Olson, my GOAT. He gets a double mention on my part. Well, that is... Olson, you must be awesome. Lorix Cookie, shout out Mr. Amador. Fart Master again. Taff Sahur. That's nice. I like that. Neri Delgado Aguila. Shout out to Guasan Noyola. Let's ride. Howard Neely. Yo, shout out Mrs. Carnes, Mason, Amos, and Alex Avinger. 7:34 p.m. now. Bryce M73. Can you shout out Mrs. Billingsley again? As well as RJ for his 1 out of 5 on the practice exam, and mention the Logan is in fact not the glue guy. Man, there's such a mystery going on here. Come on. Give me that focus. Don't be that guy. Cloudy 505 Cloudy 0510. Our Lord and Savior, please shout out Mr. Mahar's class, specifically his 3rd period class. Caetano, Finn, David, and Zane. It's a Cheeto. N1HAL. Say, Addie might be the only one who will get a 1. Uno Tuno. Shout out to Mrs. Pietrzak. And Miss Catrombone. Arden Contaldo. Shout out please give a teacher a shout out. His name is Dean Sprang. Our class loves your videos. Lucy Jacionis with a $2 donation. Thank you. XYZE3L6L. Shout out Mr. Richard's bald, beautiful head, as I'm scratching my own bald, beautiful head. Delirious or Lucid. Hi, Heimler. Shout out my teacher, Garrett Kang, and say, oh, so maybe not. It's an inside joke. Thanks. We love you, Heimler. Thank you. Love Jelly. Shout out to the best APUSH teacher ever, Mr. Shuckman. Manifest our destiny to all get 5s. To all get a 5, please. On Triple T, we need it. Liam Halsey. Shout out Miss Harris from HA. Andrea Nunez. Shout out Mr. Cohen, APUSH, a.k.a. Historic Slim Shady from Andy and Kev. This is from 736. Hannah Lakowitz. Shout out Smithtown Eats, Mr. Minton. He loves JFK. Oliver Jacob. Can you say, shout out Noah DeWitt for my text sound effect? Snowy Paw Chew. Hi, Heimler from Mr. Pickett's 3rd and 5th period. You should watch Hetalia. Okay. Okay. Exotic Butters. Shout out to Mr. Hatmaker. Justin Cruz. Shout out Mr. H. Worley and Day. Explain the importance of the Battle of the Chicken. It's very important, and Mr. H does not know about it. Well, I don't know that I should give up the secrets, honestly. Alice EQ6. Shout out Mr. Johnson from ECG. He's the absolute GOAT. Please tell him to get third block APUSH Arby's Chitlins if we all get fives. Sounds fair. Lee Apario. Please look into the camera and say, I can't say all that in the camera. Triple T wishes you luck on your Super Sigma journey. Oscar, alas. Yeah, it'll be super motivating. That's hard to keep in the mind. All right, I'm 737 now. Few NZII. Hafner was last year, and now I need a shout out for my GOAT Ryan Cara. Wish him luck for his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey and Clippers for 2027 championship. Yeah, good luck. Layla453 for $2, thank you. The Political Pulse for $1, thank you. Lucy Jacionis for $1, thank you. Josh Sosa. Shout out to Sosa's Sigmas. Madeline for $20. Please shout out. And Scuba for our GOAT, Mr. Moochie, and his G period class. Mr. Moochie, this is for you. It's what I do. It's what I do. Michaela Williams, shout out Mr. Verdos, best APUSH teacher and the absolute GOAT. Homemade puns. Could you shout out Mr. Witkovich, aka Primo Witkovich, hashtag APUShed it to the limit. We are at 7:38 p.m. Simple Void. Can you shout out my absolute GOAT, Mrs. Alcade? Can you point to the camera with your full hand thumb up in the air like you're going for a handshake and say, boy, what is that? We're getting fives. We're getting a 5 on Triple T. Love you. Thank you. That's very generous. I appreciate that. Hope that works for you. Elite Dirt Cows. Stare at the camera. Call out to Patrick Flynn. Zerk 7795. Charlie Rock would be struggling with his diapers. John Castle for $100. Goodness gracious, John Castle. Let me put Texas Roundhouse butter on your head. Shout out my teacher, Tim Hibbs. What happens after the butter's on my head? Does it get cooked and eaten? Because I'm going to be honest with you. Anything with Texas Roadhouse butter on it tastes pretty good. Anyway, thank you, John. That's very kind of you. Venus5749 with a $5 chat. Thank you. Jackson Long, you the GOAT. Can you meow for Miss Hoskins, please? I draw the line at animal noises. I'm sorry, but Mr. Hoskins, I still love you. Bowl Girl, yell, APUSH takes precedence by GOAT Brother Altoff. Oliver Martin, can you say Bitcoin? I need it for my Kalshi bet. Okay, sure. Oh, am I being betted on? Are you kidding? Is that? No way. Is that real? That's so crazy. Those websites freak me out. All right. Don't know what username to get. Somebody go look it up. Am I being bet on at Kalshi, whatever it's called, Kalshi? Yeah, if you're in the chat, you were looking for the review. All that is at the beginning of the stream. You can just go back. I'm just reading super chats right now. All right, I'll check in a second. Let me keep reading. To know what username to get. Shout out to Mrs. Palacio at McCarthy High School. Prawn Man Glazer. Shout out Mr. McCollum. We have fun with prawn tattoo. Yeah, I said Bitcoin. So am I being bet on? I don't know. Somebody find out. All right, I'm at 7:40 p.m. right now. Vivi McGinnis. The saxophones aren't getting louder because Mr. Mo APUSH class is getting fives. Love you, 667 T Heimler. Chef Hat. Say hi to Miss Richter at JFK High School. DHE low-key doesn't mess with me. I don't see a bet for Heimler. Okay. That's good. I don't know that I want to be on those. Binta Mensa. Please shout out Miss Bishop. You got it. And $10. Thank you. All right, I'm reading from 7:41 p.m. These are submitted from 7:41. Lordot N7Z. Shout out my APUSH buddy Ella, who's also self-studying. Props to her. She's super smart and the GOAT. Well, isn't that lovely? All right. Can I do a finger heart? There it is. Nailed it. All right. Valeria Sagni. Shout out Mr. Curie APUSH. Nickname 4270. Can you shout out Miss Khan and Taft High School? And could you say Kona is the GOAT? Huda Abasi. The GOAT, look at us and say, we miss you, Sister Archon. Hope I said that right. Sweetie Hearts. Heimler, I have a crush on you. KDK. I'm reading from 742. Did I say that? KDK. Shout out to my fellow APUSH goats, Addie, Hannah, Emily, and Jonathan. Thank you, Heimler, for saving my APUSH grade. Bonqualicious. Yo Heim, blue pill or black pill? Shout out to Big P. I'm going to need to know what's in those pills before I say one or the other. Megan O'Driscoll. Shout out to Mrs. Neeb from PNG. We love you so much, and we thank you so much, Heimler. From Charles Darwin, Head on a Monkey and 30 Club. In Neeb we trust. NKCZ4UR. Shout out to Miss DeUrso. Shout out to Miss Durso. Let her know that she's the best history teacher ever. Fives for all of 5A. P.S. Henry Kissinger is a chud. I mean, you're not wrong. Stone TU1. Shout out Mr. Johnson from North Monterey County. Thank you for always making first period fun and engaging. Bubble GG. Please shout out my APUSH teacher, Mr. Mann. He lowers my cortisol. Vlogs by Anna. Hi, Heimler. Shout out to Mrs. Mays, and please bless me, Anna, and Sky to pass our exams. We love you. Anna and Sky, you're blessed. Anders Cubes. Shout out Mr. Richard. Say, we do a little trolling. A.O. Oni for $10. Thank you. Can you say, shout out Luca Lim and James K. Polk, bro, Bill, like Richie. Yep. Still reading from 742. Katie, O4K, etc. Can you shout out Mrs. White? By the way, thanks for all your review videos. If I do good on the APUSH test, I'm giving you credit because you're the GOAT. Aw. Well, thank you. But you deserve the credit, really. Gail Carbone Pagan. Hey, Heimler, I love you. Shout out Miss Heath. We love you. Aubrey Erhard. Shout out to Miss Stars, APUSH at RHS. Turbo Finney for $20. So generous. Thank you. Hey, Heimler, can you shout out Mr. Stoddy and Miss Salter at Sierra Canyon High School? Also, thanks for all your help throughout the years. Well, you're most welcome, and thank you for that generosity and for taking the time to encourage me. Samuel Tarka for $1. Thank you. Nosy for $20. Yo, shout out my boy Plumber for me. He loves you. And you know I love Plumber. Hey, Plumber. You know I love you. Literally a boss for $20. Hi, Heimler. You've been fantastic to watch all year. You've helped me get great test scores, and I have nothing but appreciation for it. Shout out Mr. LT and his 7th period APUSH. Mr. LT, 7th period APUSH. Good luck, guys. And thank you, literally a boss, for that generosity. I appreciate it. Good luck. Key Crin for $10. Shout out to the GOAT Young Thunder. JHQRTS. Shout out to the best APUSH teacher, Miss Alexandra Wepner, and the best AP World teacher, Miss Brenda Siles. Logan W. Reynolds. Can you give a shout out to Timothy Bossman Newman? Amadal Jalaihawi for $20. Shout out Miss Guerrero Ferrero from ULA, best APUSH teacher ever. Where's my brownie points at, Miss G? And also Gigi, Yasin, Mahdi, Hiba, and Aya. 6'7", Heimler, 6'7". I hope I said all those names right, but thank you so much. The Gamer, shout out to Mr. Nagy. Layla McDonald, shout out Mrs. Koffel, best APUSH teacher. Alex Bushore, shout out Timothy Jones at Anderson High School. Aylin, shout out Mr. Rodriguez, period 4, please. All right, I'm reading chat submitted at 7:43. Marco, shout out J-Wags, period 7, history from P. Berg. Son Setranger, can you shout out Miss Goodman? Can you wish Miss Goodman a happy birthday? Happy birthday, Miss Goodman. Birthday twins. Daniela, can you shout out Mr. Buttle from 2nd and 6th period? Eva Cara, say hi to Mr. Katovitz. Salvatore, shout out Coach Wicks from Hendersonville High School. Marcus Marketing, shout out Miss Mann from Ann Narg, Adrian Mark. Tida 2749, love you, Miss Park. Jonah, Lynn, Jinx, and Aiden. Ian Fate, shout out the GOAT, Andrew Jackson, and Mr. Moriel. Monica Nucleia with a $1 donation. Thank you. Kareem Hamami, can you shout out Mrs. Tomaselli and Daburrell? Annie G27, shout out period 6, Miss Kling's class. Good luck. Olivia Wheaton, can you shout out Mr. Traz from Ballston Spa High School? Yo-Yo Dude, Mr. Godoy, shout out Mr. Godoy for making APUSH fun. Rena's Repository, thanks for everything, Heimler. Shout out Mr. Pena, I'm not sure which one that is. The Just a Box, shout out the GOAT, Miss Thorpe, Ethan, and Bruck. Mr. M6549, please, Heimler, please shout out Mr. Storr and Mrs. Sheridan. Technical Difficulty Studios, listen to you from the gym. Shout out Mr. Antaki from the gym. Dang, okay. I'm Jeff Bezos. Shout out Mr. G. We are so tongue blessed. Ride DH 2KK. Westinghouse loves APUSH. Mr. McKay and Heimler. All right, now we are at 7:45 p.m. And that comes in with Max Hewitt with a $2 donation. Dwayne Harris. Hi, Heimler. I want you to shout out Dr. Doomsday Dancy. Definitely Geo. Shout out Mr. Mock. It's always Mock o'clock. Honeybee 505 with a $5 donation. Thank you. Bob Schlag. Shout out Mr. Mahur. Tongue Mahar class on top from Ethan A. Scotty Reedman with a $1 donation. Thank you. Hendrik Amelink. Shout out to Mr. Henry from Blacksburg High School. Becca Morrissey for $10. And the first one of 7:46 p.m. Shout out my best friend, My Hair. She struggled a lot with APUSH, but so glad she stuck with it. And shout out Miss Yada of for always sticking with me. Happy birthday. That's amazing. way to honor the people who helped you and honor the people who needed help. Well done. Luca YH9KM. Thank you for carrying me through AP Euro and APUSH, Heimgoat. Can I get a ratatata tongue shout out and blessing to Mr. Stell's 7th period class? Herb0690. Shout out Mr. Brazil. Imono Timo for $20. Thank you. Shout out to Mr. Ed Baruch at East Chapel High School. His head is shiner than yours. Wow. Love you, Heimler. And make sure to tell Stephanie that she's old. I wonder how old Ed Baruch gets his head that shiny. Share some secrets. Nick Fowler. Shout out to Mr. Robinson at Spring Valley. Aurora the Hybrid. Huge shout out to Mr. Bull. Thanks for everything. Ray Gattoni. Shout out to Mr. Peel from JMHS. Best teacher ever. We'll all get 5s. Talno Chomowski. Shout out Mr. Tessier. Mrs. Tessier. She is so sweet and kind. Such an amazing APUSH teacher. And she deserves a shout out. Miss Tessier, gray, APUSH, average on top. A mouse, a rat. This is from 747. Shout out Mr. Cohen from 3rd period. Tell him his hygiene routine example for the best thesis will most definitely get us the 5. 6767 Kev. Miles 1947. Shout out Mr. Spencer. Do you know where you are? ATKE 25. Shout out Mr. Smith for being a great APUSH teacher and always challenging his students. Nice. For those of you asking how to do super chats now, they got turned off at 8:30. So yeah, I got all the 745. Right now I'm at 747. Let's keep going. From W Zinc, can you shout out my boy T Hizzle, best teacher ever, and his antics under the bridge? Vertex was taken. Thanks, Janice. You the best. Vote Ginter for senior class president. Topher Bruz won. On Tung 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 Sahur, we brews are getting 5s. Oliver Martin. Shout out to my friend Brendan for coming out in my APUSH class at Seabury Hall last period. For coming out. Okay. Nice. Leia Holoka. Shout out Mr. Lo Giacano, the big LJ. Thanks for making sure we all get 5s on Friday. And Tornado. Shout out Mrs. Hosgood from Antonio. We're all getting 5s with the GOAT on our side. Jessica Rojas Hernandez for $10. Shout out Mr. Baker's first hour APUSH and all Edwardsville APUSH students. Tung Tung blesses everyone with scubas and 5s. Faith Combo. Shout out Mr. Sheldon's 5th period APUSH class. Please bless us for the test on Friday. Thank you, Heimler. You to birthday for real. Marco Refuerzo. Shout out Mr. Chin at PCHS. Please bless us with 5s. Also, happy birthday, Heimler, my goat. Thank you. I'm reading from... Come on now. Reading from 7:48 p.m. Nacho Kyle for $20. Thank you. Bless up. Shout out Mr. Nash. Indeed, Mr. Nash, consider yourself shouted out. Thank you, Nacho Kyle. Gavin Creighton, 6770. Love from DTSMA. Mr. Menard and Heimler collab soon. Life told by videos. This is from 749. Thank you to my teacher, Mr. Baker, and Mr. G, especially early bird class at EHS, and to all my friends and wonderful girlfriend for all the help and support. Alexander Champagne. Shout out to Mr. Peacoat. Saint Ignatius. Thank you for the $10. That's amazing. CRRNCRW. Shout out Lord Mr. Stone at HSIFW for teaching how we won the Revolutionary War when the Japanese sent the Zimmerman telegram in 1667. Sounds like you got it all down. Best teacher, Oat. Maybe that's Goat. Mia Stevens. Shout out Abby, Mia, and Talia from the Big CD. Go Big Blue, we love you. Allie Michelle. Shout out Mr. Randy, Reichert, Rollslip, Allie, and Emily. Cacti777. Can you shout out my Skibbity Toilet lookalike teacher, Mr. Arns? Can you also tell him to lock in and buy a Labubu? Willow Barrow. Shout out Mr. Lang, sweetest APUSH teacher ever. We have made it to 7:50 p.m. 7:50. Maddie DQ. Shout out the GOAT, Mr. McCully. And shout out to Chi New Prov is all getting... And shout out to Chi New Prov is all getting 6 sevens. Levy Plays. Shout out to my GOAT of APUSH teacher, Miss McG, who helped me write better. Also, shout out to 6th period and shout out to Miguel. TZ Slug. Shout out Mr. Nolan, goated APUSH teacher. Saisat Vikopu. Shout out Mr. Shout out Mr. Garish and Merchant Preserved Fish. We're reading now, or I'm reading. Nobody here but me. Reading now from 751. Luna Santana. Shout out to Miss Tate from PPCHS. Hashtag GOAT. Hashtag Hi Heimler. Hashtag 5. Marcus Sledge. Shout out Mr. Apings. First period. We will get 5s. Stone TU1WB. Shout out Evan Berger, Aiden, and Ethan Borba. Did he just say that his last name is Berger? Real Rofa with a $5 donation. Shout out Mr. Ryder and William Howard Taft. Exist 483. Shout out Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Galinsky from FTHS. Skylar Reynolds. Shout out. Can you start posing for an edit? Switch poses. Also say hi to Mr. Frick and to Mr. Dobb. Hope that works. Jeep Beep. Shout out Miss Ruben B. Block. Rubik's King. Shout out Mr. Wessel's third hour and shout out President Taft for busting the most trust and not getting stuck in a toilet. Biggest U.S. propaganda oath. Although I think it was a bathtub. That's the thing everybody says. It's the bathtub he got stuck in. Or if it's the toilet, maybe I read wrong. All right. Honeybee 505. And this is coming from 7:52 p.m. Shout out Mr. Young Thunder, APUSH class at Black River Falls High School. We are all getting 5s this year. Tom Almany for $10. Shout out Mrs. DeBacco and bless her first period. All right. Mrs. DeBacco's first period. You're blessed. Sal Fuse for $10. Shout out Mr. Dodd, best APUSH teacher and coach. Balloons and candy bars. That sounds like a party. Will Sinagra, also for $10. Miss Ruben, G Block is 10 times the yuck B Block. You heard it here, folks. Gabriela Varez. Shout out Miss Nunez and Miss V for helping me clutch. SML3, whatever, something else. On every American president's life, I'm getting a 5. All right, these have come in at 7:53. These are now submitted at 7:53. Civil War Guy 08. Shout out Mrs. O'Connell. Unit 5 for the win. C-Man 12345. Rotos Hop on the blocks from Dr. Kegel on level Amstud. All right. Tung Sahur 1725. Please shout out Mr. A and Mr. B. Much love, Heimler. Layla Sylvester. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Marsher. He thinks you're cute. Aw. Jeckety Sneckety. Shout out my APUSH teacher, Mr. DeWeese, and shout out to Bill and Ted as well. Jacoby Bryan. Please ask Jason if he has seen the video. Najib Sulaiman. Shout out 4th period at the village school. Raccoon for $10. And by the way, we're at 7:54 p.m. Shout out Klaus. I know you think we're all robots, but we appreciate you. May your future APUSH classes ask less questions and bring you coffee. Well, that's lovely. Project Goggles. Shout out Mr. Cleland class, Prov 26, Cle da Goat, Dom. Lap is. Shout out Mr. Sotnik, the GOAT. Just a Brad. Shout out Mr. Sinden. Tell him, welcome to St. David's and good luck with the new house. All right, we're at 7:55. 7:55 now. Lunars Tro. Shout out to Derek Villanueva and Lucas Evans, the best APUSH teachers. The reason we are getting 5s. When all else fails, blame Mr. Evans. All right. Keep going. Ava Cutrona. Shout out Miss Gibbons and Mod 1. Elliot Repanier. Happy to share a birthday with you. No better way to spend. Birthday twin. Efrat's address run for $20. That's very kind. Thank you, Father Heimler. Shout out to Miss Barrage. She's my Miss Honey. Sakaju. And this is from 7:56. Can you shout out my friend Anis, Das, Tumas, Samet, Nush, Dush, Goose, Korean, Letter, Genshin, Impact, please? Yep. Charlie Wellman for $10. Thank you. Can you shout out Mr. Kessler from Uni High? It's his last year teaching, and he's the best teacher I've ever had. Mr. Kessler, well done, and good luck to you. Elliot Arts for $1. Thank you. I'm at 7:57 p.m. Kathy, can you please shout out Justin and Kathy? Please, 6767. Wilkin Lie Cry. Hello, Heimler. Can you say this for an edit intro? What's up, Coach Mac? No. What's up, Coach Mac? You are so aura. Nailed it. Avas Zinerkowski. Shout out to Ricky Ritter from the Big CCHS. Hashtag CCHS Core. Leah Violet. Hey, can you shout out my APUSH teacher, Mr. Matarasso from Long Island? Philip. Thank you for all your help. Shout out Mr. Bentz, Mr. Kenny, Mr. Fisher, and Triple T. You are the AP GOAT. Justy, please shout out Kathy, a.k.a. my girlfriend, 676767. Tim Tom, shout out Mr. Kuzman. MKBTCG. Shout out to Coach Stromy and his 8-year-old daughter that can write a DBQ better than my whole class. 758. XX Waffles XX. $450 coming in hot, y'all. Shout out to Sir Haskell Easel, the GOAT. Bless all of us in 3rd period block APUSH with 5s, please. You blessed with 5s. Thanks for milking our brain cows. Thank you for that generosity. I appreciate that. Pratt TMVVIII for $10. Hello, Mr. Heimlich. Can you please shout out 60% awesome and Mrs. Bettinardi. You are the GOAT. See you next year for AP Human Geo. Yes, I'll see you then. We're at 7:59 p.m. Ariana. Yo, Heimler, please wish the APUSH students of Rotus good luck on the exam. You're the GOAT. Good luck, guys. Hope it goes well. Julie Martin. Shout out Mr. G, the GOAT. You're the best. Emily LaFortune. Shout out Mr. Laub. Co-op high school. He's the alpha and the leader. He's the alpha. He's the leader. He's the one we trust. This man is a rock star. Give us a 5 or give us death. Allie and Emmy. Wait. He's the alpha. Is that from Zombies? Is that what I'm picking up here? Great movie. Whitney. Yeah, Zombies. Yeah, Whitney Mullins. $10. Shout out to Miss Sarah Hancock and all the FCS APUSH kids. Miss Hancock, thank you for always showing the love of Christ through your teaching and being the best teacher ever. Love you so much. Tim Tom 5. Shout out Mr. Kuzman. Ariana 21709. Hi, can you please wish left Ben good luck on the exam? Weatherboy 4720. Shout out Mrs. Campbell, the true goat of APUSH. We all getting 5s. 676767. We made it to 8 p.m. Oh, and now we're at 8:01 p.m. Lucia Stellata. Shout out Mr. Mahar. We appreciate you. Big Stinker Deuce. Hello, Heimler Sensei. Shout out the big man, Mr. Reed, goat teacher for real. Also, curse you, Anthony Pauletti. Pretty Princess 07. Shout out Mr. Dingus from West High School. Casey Al Rafe. Thank you so much for everything, Data Heimler. Can you also shout out Mr. Stoltz from Harmony High School of Innovation, Garland? You got it. Got to get rid of that. It's messing with me. All right. $1 Million Ruby. I'm at 8:02. Hey, Goat. Can you shout out Mr. Jordan, one or more commonly known as J Cubed, for also being a goated APUSH teacher at New Dorp High School. VJ123K. Shout out Mr. Rashid and his period 2 and 3 classes. Go class of 2027 and good luck on Friday. Pepperlock 8185 for $10. Shout out Mr. DiTucci from SPHS. Great teacher and deserves all respect for making his class enjoyable and a great blueprint to score great on the final exam. T1MTOM5. Shout out Mr. Kuzman. Katie Fenco 8353. Shout out Mr. Aguilar from Ferguson High School. Maston Johnson. Can you shout out Mr. Lojacano, your bald brother? Massimo17. Shout out Miss Bussy Templeton and her 4th hour. N1HALP. Addie buys cheese pizzas for $25 max. Ronan was there for $10. Shout out Tung Mr. Bedard for being the GOAT. We're at 8:05 now, guys. 8:05. Geode 3 Cat. Please look into the camera and widen your eyes while you say, bacon, bacon's rebellion. And tongue, Heimler. Isaiah T27. Shout out to the best APUSH teacher, Mr. DeLorenzo. 6 Iara. Shout out Mr. Soyson. He's a hardworking teacher. And I thank him for a lot. That's awesome. We're at 8:06. Zoe Lover 3. Shout out Omni Sandin. We are the best APUSH class ever, and we are definitely all getting 5s. Happy birthday, Heimler. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Grayson 927. How can I pass AP exam if I got a 45 on the final? You got it. You're going to do it. Camden Bernard 3S3L. Shout out Mr. Menard. Goodness gracious. Okay, Camden Bernard. Let's try this again. Shout out Mr. Menard at DTSMA and wish Aura King Viator luck getting the hooligans of 6th and 7th period. We're at 8:07. I think think my voice is going to last. I think we can do it. Joseph Z11, shout out to Miss Cabot for being a great and helpful APUSH teacher and helping me and my class get a 5. May she keep spilling the tea since 1773. Lino Lover for $20. Shout out Miss G, 5th period at NWSA. We all getting 5s in the name of Bakudiku. Ivada Silva for $2. Thank you. Jeremy MG7L. Shout out Evo initials Anis Das Thomas Samat Anasek and Anasnek. Philip Browning. Shout out to D-Ball, her 4th period. Audrey and still at 807, about to be at 808. Curry Maker. Shout out Triple T, GT 31, Henry, Pierre, Cy, and David. Not Anti-30 for $10. Can you please shout out Anis Das from CRA High School? We all love you here. Well, I love you guys too. You know that. Dazed with a Y for $20. Thank you so much, Heimler. Shout out to G Philly, the GOAT, Mr. Phillips at RCB. CN Railfan Guy. Do you think Boss Tweed can pull the gritty? Boss Tweed can do anything he wants. 8:09 p.m. Mariana Garcia. Shout out to Mrs. Crichton. Please say, nah. Justice for All for $10. Shout out to Mr. Olinger for being such a great APUSH teacher. We love you so much. Love your favorite students, DJ, Eden, and Aniston. Also, we love you, Heimler. Your vids are so helpful. Well, thank you. I'm the Des 5. Please shout out Miss Alvarez, APUSH class. We all getting 5s. We are all getting 5s. Also, period 2 is the best. T1MT0M5. Shout out Mr. Kuzman. Blake's Macaroni. Shout out to Miss Knight's best APUSH teacher ever. Our class will get 5s. We're at 8:10 p.m. Spence Twin for $10. Yo Heimler Twin. Shout out my APUSH teachers, Spence Yoho and Emily Lopez. They are a newlywed couple and would love your support. That's amazing. Congrats, guys. Congrats. On Yoho, we all getting 5s on Friday. Give us your blessing. Love you, Heimler. Spence Twin and all your people, you're blessed. Hydro Eagle. Bless Cooper, Braden, and Sam with 5s. Am Human Being. 84.95. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Callis from Bethel Park. Remember to open the crackers from the Cold War from your fave first period class. From your fave class, first period. Ivada Silva. Shout out to Graz from Sacred Heart Academy. Reading from 811. Rian Kapoor with a $1 donation. Thank you. Jeremy YM, G7L. Heimler, please say Nate wants CC Diaz. Please. You got it. Urbaman 22. Please shout out Miss Jane Daly from Salem AP World. Mars 191. Heimler, can you shout out Alfredo Gonzalez? Connor 2053. Hey Heimler, love your videos. Thank you for the help. Shout out to you, Coach Polo. Or Pollo, Mr. Labozo. Keep those brain cows milking everyone. Thanks, Connor. And this is 813. 813. S Noah 1. Shout out Chester and Nick. We are getting 5s. Abdullah Hamer. Shout out Mr. Wondrak from BASCS, the greatest APUSH teacher. Makes us demand the best of ourselves daily. That does sound like a good teacher. Zeba Chowdhury. Shout out to Mr. Otto from NYC and his GF and his girlfriend Chat GPT. The Zomer. Shout out Mr. Justice from SMCHS, best APUSH teacher. We're at 814. Did I say that? Matt Lyerly. Heimler, shout out Mr. Dry, his luscious beard, and Jumbo. Also say, Mr. Dry, the seagulls are going to get you, and bless APUSH periods 3 and 4 for struggling. All right. You're blessed. Motion Arshad. Shout out Miss Virtu, GOAT APUSH teacher. Zor Spurks. We're at 8:15 p.m. Heimler, please say Bailey wants Maritza Soto. Excuse me. Elia Vantali. Hello, Stephen Heimler. Please send good luck to Miss Moulton's class, especially my friend John, who needs a lot of support to do well on his exam. Sarah Ali. Shout out to the best innovation high teach, Mr. Mello, and his APUSH class. Manifesting fives for all students. Everyone's going to be tung sahir on Friday. Or Friday. Excuse me. Pop Soda Kyler. Shout out to Miss Knight, best APUSH teacher. The I Squad 6797. You the real goat. Shout out Lila, Spencer, and Triple T. Stone TU1WB. Can you say, I'm watching you, Aiden Gonzalez. Fay45. Happy birthday. Thank you. Shout out Miss Rassicott from Jordan High School. Zorsperks with a $1 donation. Thank you. All right, I'm reading from chat submitted at 8:17 now. Wind Wonder. Shout out Mr. Lyons class. Javer. Shout out. Can you please shout out Miss Gibson's mods 2 and 6? Not Anti 30. Please shout out Mr. Annis, and our APUSH teacher. No, please shout out Mr. Annis, our APUSH teacher. Rusty Peanuts with a $2 donation. Thank you. Zorsperks. Heimler, please say Amhari is the rat of the GC. Jaylee5540. Shout out to Mr. Mock, the APUSH mogger at Branham. Reading from 819. Javer, can you please also shout out Miss Gibson's Mod 5? Jack Solo, thank you, Heimler. Shout out to Mr. Callahan for carrying us through AP World and APUSH. Shout out Nick Henry and Andrew, Molly on 3. Bridget Valls. Say that Mr. Nass and Dr. Turner are the best Amstud teachers ever. The Big C Goat. Please shout out our bald goat, Mr. Big Lowjack. Now from 820, Ian Fate. How do catalysts alter reaction pathways at STP? Sounds like you're on the wrong stream, bud. I don't know. Nia Sadler. Shout out to Miss Connell. Tongue, you blessed. Charlie Wellman. Dante and Chloe. I'm at 822 now. Noah Rip. Vote Lila and Noah for class pres, and you will get a 5. That's just how the world works. Rusty Peanuts with a $5 donation. Modded Goat with a $5 donation. Jeremy M with a $2 donation. Daniel Yasin. Can you say Vihan uses ChatGPT on all his assignments while staring at the camera, then say, Joey. It's an inside joke in my class. That's great. Cho Y8D for $10. Heimler, can you give a special shout out to my APUSH teacher? His name is Daniel Perkel. And I want to show him this as a surprise. So just do whatever you want. Daniel Perkel, enjoy your shout out. And since you're a history teacher, the context is I've been reading these for over 2 hours now, and I think all the creativity has leaked out of me by this point. But I still love you. Charlie Wellman. Can you shout out Mariama and Charlie, please? Isaac D. Snuts. Okay. Shout out Mr. Mock, the best pronouncer of Nicaragua. Camden Black. Shout out to the best APUSH teacher, Mr. Howe. Taught 2 APUSH classes in 90 days. Thank you for your hard work and believing in us. Cam. Aurora Cat. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Kiefer. Zyronado. Shout out to 5th period, Miss Lawler. Derek Schlappcole. Shout out to Miss Johnson at E3. Wish 2nd period good luck. Modded Goat. Can you shout out Stephen Spizak? Molly Butler with a $2 donation. Thank you. Ivada Silva. By the way, we're at 826. Ivada Silva. Shout out to Graz's period 3 class. YK Olive. Can you shout out Mr. Terry and Miss Knox? KQN, CAYQN. Shout out K-Mac, he the goat. Abina Shrizal. Please shout out Big AB Rizal and David Demal. Isaiah Vault. Shout out Mr. McKinney. We're at 8:27 p.m. Nico APUSH. Shout out Mrs. McDonald, the greatest APUSH teacher of all time, and her period 3 class over at Newfield High School. We are all getting 5s because of you. That's so nice. Philip Browning, 6189. Wish D-Ball a happy retirement. She's awesome. D-Ball, happy retirement. Congratulations. Nadia Rivera, just a $10 donation. Thank you. Jamie Marlin, shout out to Patrick McKeon, my APUSH teacher. Tell him to watch out for those flat tires. He might end up on the side of the road. T. Tanguis, shout out to Mr. Carmadel and the History Wolves from St. Paul's, best APUSH teacher and best Pirates of the Caribbean actor. In Henry Clay we trust. Charlie Wellman, can you shout out Grayson, Teddy, and Connor? Less of a Bean, shout out to Dr. Williams and all APUSH kids from OPRFHS. Nay QF3BI, shout out Mr. Watson's third period. Wish all of them 5s. Grayson 92710. Shout out Mr. Bravada. We're at 8:28, guys. Flip Pepper with a donation of $2. Thank you. Jack Heeb. Shout out to the best APUSH teacher, Miss Ajalat. Thank you for carrying us through the year and making sure we all get 5s. Alan, Y9F2I. Shout out Mr. Stepadinan. Best APUSH teacher. I know I didn't say that one right, but Patrick Shattuck for $20. Thank you. I want to thank you not only for simplifying and making APUSH fun for all of us, but also for my APUSH teacher, Mr. Simmons. If it wasn't for him, I don't think I'd feel confident for this test at all. Well said. Well said. Thank you, Patrick. Sadie Koo. Still at 8:28. Can you shout out Miss Razor? She's the GOAT. She's the best. And say Amelie Dombo and Kiki are all getting 5s. Thank you. Music and Mosaics. Shout out Mr. Menard and his 6th hour. We are getting 5s. Mitsujima. Hi, Heimler. Can you please shout out my teacher, Alan Perez, and also second period? He's helped me out a lot throughout the year. Thank you, Julian. Nadia Rivera for $10. Shout out to the GOAT, Mr. Bullock at GC for being such a great teacher. And to period 1, we the best. Ethan Hassanina. Thank you. Hey, Heimler. Thank you for all you do and for getting us 5s. Would like to shout out Miss Bowling's 6th period class at Lake Howell High School. Toasters Games. I regret procrastinating. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. SNDNFNXN 333. Heimler, did you know Amari Ammons is Ray Way's rat? Sure did not. Gascon. Oh, we're at 8:29 now. Gascon CR4, Gascon CR496. Hi from Santa Paula High School. You are so handsome. Thanks. Colin Lyons. Shout out Julie Flood, the coolest APUSH teacher in the 608. Molly Butler. Stigel, you are an amazing teacher. Or whatever. You know who you are. You are an amazing teacher, period 7. Cheese. Shout out 5 and 6 period Miss Black from VHS. Shadow and the Thorns. Shout out to Sharnock's class. We're at 8:29. Laya Parker. Wish me luck on Friday, please. Good luck. 483K4. Shout out Mr. Wegman from McQuaid. The one and only MFYE. Please shout out Miss Brooke and the Ohio gang. Shira Braun Boozer with a 99-cent donation. Thank you. And the last one of the night. Just Call Me Masked. Shout out Miss Jacobson and my APUSH goat. And that's how you do it, y'all. That is how you do it. Appreciate y'all sticking around, keeping me company. That was a lot to read, but I hope you were also studying as you were listening. And if I read yours, I hope you heard it, and I hope you found it. Did I skip one? Skip one. Real Rofa from 751. Let me see. Okay, yeah, I don't have it in my super chats. Real Rofa. Sorry about that. Real REAL Rofa. 751. Oh, there it is. Shout out Mr. Reiter and William Howard Taft. High five, high five, high five. I thought I said that, but there it is. Sorry if I missed it. Okay, guys, your boy needs to go get some sleep. And so do you, I assume, if you're on the East Coast. But love y'all. Thanks for hanging out. And don't forget that we've got the same thing tomorrow. Same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be going through units 6 through 9. So all the best to y'all. Good night. Get some good sleep.